about sharing screen, or can I send you files and you share?
Hang on one second.
Sure.
You can share screen whenever you want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. You're live everywhere, basically. There's no
Wow.
real reason to do an intro, I guess. Everybody already knows what we're doing.
Right. Let's see. What- So I was unprepared for Zoom, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm a Microsoft Teams guy, but that's okay. We'll figure it
You
out.
know, I should probably use Teams. Last time I looked into Teams, it was still like, it was less than 720p, you know?
Uh,
And I can at least pay for 720p on Zoom
got
so
it.
that people don't look like a pixelated mess.
Right. So the one thing that I love about Teams is that people can raise their hand in order,
Yeah.
right? You answer one at a time and you don't skip or forget about anybody. But
I have a habit of doing
yes,
that.
you got the hint. Yes.
Oh, I've still
But
got this. I still got this thing about Marge's live stream up. Should remove that because I think it's over. Or Marge's thing. Anyway, yeah, I got the hint. I do have a habit. In fact, like the last stream that we did, it was all Stephen Bryant and Cole being like, "You should actually read the comments. Like you've got where'd you
right.
go? Oh, okay. Yeah, they're like, you should actually read the comments sometimes. They're really good." Like, oops, I don't know.
So
Okay, so we're
I
talking.
did.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say I didn't finish my agenda, but I wanted to wait till people get on to kind of
No,
bring that.
feel. I mean, this is basically your show, man. We'll do whatever you want, however you want to do it.
Yeah, so this is gonna be, I forgot to mention that I'm hoping I want to make this interactive, right? Again, part of proving someone's theory is that people can test it in the background.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be asking people questions to research things live on Google, and then hopefully I can persuade them that I'm on the right path.
Okay, so as long as you know that most people that I talk to either watch these on their phones or their TV, and in either case, they can't Google.
Okay.
It
Well, they
would be
could
difficult.
So you can see my screen?
Yeah.
All right.
So can they? So whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Okay. Can you see people that have joined?
Yeah, you got like 12 on Facebook and
Okay.
uh, about 12 on YouTube. It
Perfect.
usually like the first people will file in for the first
Okay.
like 30 minutes.
No worries. I just wanted to make sure people hear my introductory statement. I wanted to open by saying that I'm on the spectrum for Asperger's. So if anybody's familiar with that, like I was saying, they to you before this, they can Google it to understand that basically on the spectrum for autism, your brain is wired a certain way. And for some reason, now that I think I understand his kookiness, right? It's starting to make sense to me. And so that's why I asked to have this call so that I can people can test me, right, on the things that I'm seeing now. And I've been to a couple of cities to do videos, but I couldn't get them right because I hadn't totally understood the way his brain is wired. So I tried filming in Houston, New Orleans. I just came back from Chicago because I finally got so frustrated. I'm like, I need to see things for myself to prove that I'm understanding how Byron's brain was wired. And so, and it worked. And in all of these cities, it's been working. So that's why I'm trying to test it. But anyhow, all that being said, I wanted to just kind of remind folks that signed up that as you and I were talking, we need to like lay some ground rules on before I can present what I want to present, right? So I want to stress, and this is where I need you to correct me if I'm wrong, that he was 28 years old at the time, is my understanding, and that he had been an elementary school teacher. Is that a true statement?
I think so. I think if I
That's
remember
fair.
correctly, he like kind of taught elementary school when he was in college. Is like a
Right. Yes, correct. Yes. Awesome. All right. So we know he was a teacher. So teachers, my theory here is that these are lesson plans, right? So moving along, in addition to that, Ben is it Asen or
Asen?
Asen? Asen has said clearly that he was a Civil War buff, right? That he loved all things Civil War. Okay, so we've established that. Next point, he had an Ivy League level education. JJP himself has said that this guy was a brainiac, right? So again, I'm trying to put myself in his mindset, what he would have found funny, interesting, whatever. And then moving along, we have to accept the fact that he was trying to create, like I said earlier, I know that sounds a little intense, but a Star Wars type universe, a Marvel universe, whatever you want to call it, right? He was trying to create a franchise, basically, if that's the word, I think.
Okay.
So he created this fair folk, fair people mythology that they came from the old world to the new world. Again, these are just American history lesson plans. If you think, like I mentioned earlier, if you apply that to how our country was founded, so we know he was a teacher, right? So even though that was after Roanoke, whatever, but that's a side conversation. So every city was founded by someone at some point landing somewhere. And in my research, I have found every city so far that I've looked into has a landing site nearby. Okay, so keep that in mind. Then, as I said, in addition to those landing sites, they obviously, once they land, they have to build housing and they'll build a fort and, ramparts, walls to protect themselves from, anybody, whatever. So keeping in mind now how he thinks, how normal human history occurs, especially in this country, then you have to marry those two together in order to understand what he was trying to accomplish. So I wanted to go over, to prove this point, or my point is to go over all of the detail that has been missed in the found cities. So it was overkill. Like he threw in way, like we didn't need to know all that, but great that he did, I guess. It's fascinating, right? It made him happy. It was of interest to him, but ultimately, as you know, most of these puzzles, I would say confidently, you only needed about 75-80% of the clues solved to find it.
How do you know that?
Well, from what people believe the steps were.
Yeah, but what if they're wrong?
And that's what I wanted to go over. So let's start with Chicago. I just got back from Chicago. It was the first one that was found. So let me bring that up. So one of the things that really irked me when I was there is that we missed details on the where'd it go? So I think you just mentioned it recently, how he didn't do a lot of due diligence. I think he found something of interest to himself and just ran with it. Because as I was touring the area where it starts, MMB, as you know, is that Symphony. I was standing there and I looked across the street and I was shocked to see that there's another MMB right across the street, Memling and Botticelli. So I'm like, whoa, dude, like what? But then I reminded myself that in the actual painting itself, he actually showed, I don't know if this has been discussed. This is why I'm so happy to have your ear here, because you have a lot, you're basically like our treasure trove of knowledge, pun intended, of history. So where did I keep that? Let me see. And I'm going to be bouncing around, so bear with me. So I couldn't believe it. So this section of the painting is the symphony. At the entrance to the symphony, they have, see the triangular top and a semicircle. Semicircle, triangular top. The little weird pattern on the wall, the same thing. He has it. It's that, where did I put it? Okay. It's right here. It's on the side. So that whole facade is the MMB. So that's how I know he didn't mean Memling and Botticelli. He meant the actual symphony.
Okay.
And like details that missed. Again, did we need this to solve it? Probably not. But it helps to understand what he was thinking. And then one thing that people haven't mentioned. So this is where I wanted to make it interactive. So for those that are listening, and if they're able to, I kept looking at this. I'm like, what is the most prominent feature here? It's this building, right? It's the castle on top of the head. So if you Google Grant, that's literally what I did. I'm like, why is this so prominent? I Googled Grant, and it says that he was most famous for reconstruction, right? He reunited the country and rebuilding from all that was destroyed. So I looked at this, I'm like, yeah, that's why the fan is dilapidated. It looks like it's been through hell. And to honor John Michael's memory, he said in a couple meetings, and again, I don't know that people listened, but he said that there's motion in all of these paintings. So like this forest is going round and round, and so is this. And then she's pouring this fluid, and I'm like, why not be blue like water? To me, it looks like she's pouring fire. And so that's when I realized, just in walking around Chicago, that there's all these decorative, ornamental, what do you call them? The bait and tackle, I think. No, wrong thing. So somebody brought this up, that it's obviously the block and tackle that's at Roosevelt University, but also all of the buildings in downtown seem to have these decorative things, see? And they're for the fire escapes, right? And there was one in particular, I think it's this, yeah, this one, no, not that one. See, this is another pretty one. But there's a main one, and I should have labeled this. Like I said, it's so much, it's so hard to like try and organize myself here. But the one at Roosevelt is actually the most compelling, that matches perfectly. If I can just remember where I saved that. It's literally dangling and round. And a lot of this is on my phone, so I don't remember where I saved it. Damn it. I mean, you kind of get the gist of it, right? But the one at Roosevelt is actually dangling like the one in the painting. I just wish I could remember now, but I don't want to waste any more time on this. And then this is another one that I realized has, if anybody's talked about this. Is it this one, Chicago? So this is another thing, I don't know that people have discussed this, but the part of around the ear, again, did we really need that? No, but I found it coincidental that the little stick part that sticks out, if you actually moved it here, would pretty much line up. So again, I think these are just extra details that he threw in there. We didn't really need them. But to your point, what I was able to find out is another thing that stuck with me is that he said that New York, you can see all the clues from there. And I thought to myself, why would that even matter, right? But you can actually see all of the clues for Chicago on the bridge. So I was walking back to the metro station, and halfway across the bridge, I just stopped to look back. And that's when I realized I could see everything from there. And I filmed a quick little video that I'll post later on here. From there, you could see obviously the fence, the decorative fence, the fence and fixture. You can see the back of Lincoln. You can see the spearmen, the bowmen. You can see what is it? Where's it? Congress Hotel, and then Roosevelt University. You can see the Symphony. You can see all of it. And so I realized, wait a minute, he just took us in a loop, literally like the Chicago loop. We went in a full loop. And I think I did something to illustrate that as well, but I don't remember now. As you can see, I did the loop there. I had started a file, because again, it's just a bit overwhelming at times to try to map all of this stuff out. But anyhow, this is what it looked like back then. Somebody shared these maps with me. I don't remember now who. I don't know if that's somebody that you've worked with before, but they sent me a link to Google Drive for all the maps from 1980 for all of the cities.
Yeah, they're all on 12 Treasures, so somebody probably just took them off of 12 Treasures. And
got it. Okay, that makes sense. But anyhow, so yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I'm trying to like keep it, simple. Like I said, so for me, I think I learned now that this is fire. She's putting out the fire, right? The place burnt down. Oh, and then as they say, the pièce de résistance. So as I'm walking around taking pictures, as you know, I don't want to bring it up, but I have to. The PB Works website that is good and bad all at once, right? There's a lot of good stuff, but a lot of misinformation. So in there, they mentioned that this block and tackle circle was no longer there, but they're still there.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, they're in the wall. You just have to like look up to be able to see them.
Yeah,
so
the designer, I think his name was Sullivan. I'm pretty sure it was Sullivan. Yes. That was his like signature, and he put them on everywhere on every building.
Everywhere. So as I'm standing there looking up to take a picture, an architectural tourist guide walks by, and he says, "This is one of the best Sullivan buildings in the city." And so I just realized I Googled him as well, and he was Irish. So I was like, "Oh, okay." So I guess he threw him a shout out as part of the Irish puzzle, right? So that all kind of stuff, like I'm saying, it's helpful, but it wasn't needed. It wasn't necessary to solve it. But the point I'm trying to make here is that we need to understand his thought process to carry it over to the other puzzles. That obviously he was trying to use weird symbolism that to most of us, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but to him it obviously did.
I mean, right now we're using a lot of very like concrete words. Like we need to understand he used weird symbolism when we don't know that. I mean, everything that you've presented is kind of maybe
Yeah.
like
Right.
the arches and the brick building. Like
Right.
it's got brick on it, so it's got to be sort of the same brick design. It's not the same brick design. It's not at all the same brick design, but I can kind of see where you're going with that. And
Right.
then arches having keystones, like most arches have keystones. Does that mean that John Palancar put that in there because of that? No. Could it be a coincidence? Yeah. Like the fire, is that what that means? Could it be a coincidence? Yeah. So, but like most of the time when I have conversations, when people start out like this and they give like they go, let's go to a solve puzzle and let's make all these connections. It's setting up for some pretty weird connections later on with some unsolved puzzles. So I'm preparing myself for that. I just kind of want to point out that like we haven't established anything with this because when we look at stuff we know, right? We look at the Bowman. And we go, oh yeah, I that's exactly what that is. There's no like, maybe this is my interpretation, right? When we look at the fence, we're like, we know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
When we look at Sullivan's sigil, we know exactly what that is. So I think it's important. Sometimes I feel like because we don't understand the remaining puzzles, we think that we have to have missed something in the previous ones. So we go like digging for these little details that probably aren't there. Like if we look at Cleveland, right? We've had John Palancar sit down and go through Cleveland and be like, this is exactly what everything that's in the painting. And there's nothing like, stretchy. It's all except for the what is it, the Saints and Sailors or whatever monument, which I think he got confused with something else, but it's all direct one-to-one matches. Like he's got some inspirations, but even he said the inspirations don't really matter. Right. So I think I think it's important that we acknowledge that like these may not be right, just so we don't set ourselves up for something in the future.
So here's the other piece, right? So I walked from the water tower. Oh, and again, the theme, right? He chose the water tower for fire, right?
He chose the water tower because it was the only building that remained after the fire. He chose the water tower because it's prominent. It's the same reason he chose the fort in St. Augustine because it's prominent. Same reason he chose City Hall in Milwaukee because it's prominent. Like
so when you walk from there to the fence, you walk by the landing site where the city was founded. And I found the plaque.
Well, of course, because like all of the important stuff's going to be on that. Like all of the old historical stuff's going to be right there.
Right, but they're all the same. That's what I'm saying, except for Cleveland. Then that's the thing. Why bring it up for Cleveland if they're nowhere nearby? And I can show you that one as well. This is the one that looks the weirdest. So the Greek garden is up here. But he showed the Sailors Monument and what's that tower there again? Terminal Tower, I think it is. Terminal Tower, and here's the landing site right next to it.
Okay.
So again, none of this had anything to do with where he actually buried it.
So what you're telling me is we have this idea. We're working on this idea.
Yes.
And we have answers we know how 3 of the puzzles are solved.
Right.
And this idea only works for 2 of them, kind of.
It works for Boston as well.
And that would be 2. That would be 2.
Okay.
It works for Chicago. It works for Boston. It doesn't work for Cleveland. And you can't say add more because we don't know.
Right.
But it works for 2 of 3.
So for the cities that I think I might have possibly solved, it works there as well. We'll get to that.
Okay.
So now let's do Boston.
Okay.
Here's the landing site. Literally right next to where he buried it. And it took me years to find it because, as you know, a lot of historical maps are not readily available.
When you say landing site.
Yes. Here, I'll show you the map. Okay, where are we? Boston. Oh, right next door. Okay. So where's the? I finally found this.
Okay.
So the guy that's given credit with founding Boston is John Winthrop, and he landed right there across from Old Ironsides. And it's also relevant because Paul Revere, even though they put him over here, he was actually standing where near Ironsides, waiting for the signal from the Old North Church. And I'm going to walk you through how I interpret the Boston Psalm based on his wonky logic with the other cities.
Okay.
So again, to your point, is that really astronomically coincidental that he decided to bury it right next to the landing site for Boston?
I mean, buried it. Okay.
Right? I'm just saying, give me a little wiggle room. I'm not here, right? I don't expect you to just buy in right away, as they say, dive in head first. But it gives, pause for thinking.
Let's see. I'm now reading about the founding of Boston.
Yeah, now go for it. That's what I wanted to do today. I'm trying to do this as I think he intended these to be history lessons. And it's funny because it just dawned on me today that in each poem, why I call it wonky logic. So for one poem, he's very specific about the real historical figures' names. In another one, he describes them poetically. And in another one, he just kind of alludes to them and doesn't really call them out. Like Boston, he just says in the area of his direction. So that's why he's saying, come this way, but he won't say who or specifically where. So a lot of people don't realize the Paul Revere ride was not even in Boston. It was across the river at Charlestown going towards Lexington and Concord. And it was two guys, Thucydides and Xenophon. There were two guys that climbed the North Church Tower to light the two lanterns. That's who he's talking about. But he names them these Greek names, which doesn't make any sense. It's not like they're super duper famous, right? I've never heard of their names. All I know is Paul Revere. But there were two guys that climbed the tower.
They're pretty famous.
Oh, okay. I guess for a California boy, it didn't ring a bell.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, no offense. But anyhow, so that's where I'm at with this one. And so in Houston, I'm at Tranquility Park, and the same thing. It's right down the street from Tranquility Park. The landing site is called Allen's Landing, and you can Google that one as well. The other one, New Orleans. New Orleans is a tricky one. I'm at Louis Armstrong Park, but there are two different historical locations, one north, one south. Either way, it's in the middle. I just can't figure it out. It's the same guy that founded New Orleans. There's a plaque by the Café du Monde that's where he first saw a view of what would become New Orleans. And then there's a plaque north going towards Lake Pontchartrain that has the old Portage Road that has a different sign that says he walked through there. So I don't know I can't pin down the exact landing site, but that's still enough to let us know that it's in the French Quarter, right? He's still bringing us there and not somewhere off like Lafayette Park that I absolutely believe is not part of it. But anyhow, what else? So going back to Cleveland, that's the one that I want to bring up, that I asked the question and he answered it and nobody paid attention. So when you did the meeting to prep for the Cleveland meetup and you said, hey guys, if you have questions, let me know. And you even read it out loud. I said, again, following his wonky logic, the 1881, is it coincidental that President Garfield was assassinated and is buried in Cleveland in the year 1881? And I asked that question and his response says, and this is not me, this is YouTube that did the closed captions, and it said, he's saying we have some numbers. I won't discuss those.
Yeah, but didn't he like immediately thereafter we were like, yeah, it's the latitude and longitude coordinates. He was
No, that was the Cleveland guy, the guys that found it, Andy and what's his name?
Ryan.
They jumped in. If you go back and look at the video, they jumped in and said, "Oh yeah, we already know that's the latitude and longitude." I'm like, no, don't answer for him. Like he's telling you right here.
He's not telling you anything. He's
That's what I'm
legitimately
saying,
not
right?
telling you anything.
Right, but that so for me, it's one of those where silence is, acknowledgement, right? Like he's saying, why?
No, not at all. Because even in like one of the other interviews, when he was also saying the same thing about numbers, I forget which
Like here's the
painting
kicker.
that was. Wait, I forget
Yeah.
which painting we were talking about. Where we were like, it's the latitude and longitude coordinates. We've known that since 2004, and he was like, 2004. It took that long. Like,
Right.
like it's. You can't assign meaning to something he's not. If he's not saying something, he's not saying it. You can't assign meaning. You can't be like, oh, isn't it interesting that this guy died on this date and he's buried near there? And then John says, like, I can't really talk about what these numbers mean. And you go, oh, he's answering my question. He's not.
Right.
He's not answering my question.
So then he won't acknowledge it, right? But then he turns around and says, "Oh, and by the way, there are two things that you are all missing in the puzzles that are obvious, like all the other clues." So that's what I wanted to check with you. Is that to be interpreted? Oh, what did he say? That's why
he said there's one puzzle with one painting with two obvious things that everyone's missing, and he said they were as obvious as the wall in Cleveland.
Okay, so that's the thing. So going back, how do I bring this up? See, it's been a while since I revisited this one, but
Mojo says JJP won't acknowledge anything. He acknowledges a lot. You guys just got to listen.
Right. So for me, the Cleveland puzzle looks like a mausoleum. And let me bring that up. It's in one of my videos.
Looks like a mausoleum?
Yes. Like a cemetery, which is ironic, right? Because he says in the book, it's not buried anywhere near a cemetery. Here we go.
Kathy Vale, I left to fix up my daughter's shower and she said she was watching George fight. I'm not fighting. This is fun.
What?
Just don't fight.
No, this is a heated debate.
Yeah. But it's friendly.
Which is why we're here, right? So one thing I want to stress is that before I forget is one of my biggest pet peeves here is the lack of teamwork, right? I call it the MVP syndrome. It's like I see these comments, like as far as I'm concerned, there are people that have planted some really good seeds and no one follows up on them. They just shoot them down. They're like, I don't understand what point you're trying to bring home, so I'm just going to ignore you or insult you or be cruel or whatever else antics people come up with, right? But for me, someone posts something interesting, I research it. I'm like, oh, okay. Like there was this one guy that put a picture of a statue in New York that had 3 books stacked underneath it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. This is the 3 volumes, right? And then I go to Google and I'm like, oh, there's stacks of books all around the statue. So yeah, that could have been great if there were only 3 books, but they're not.
The counter argument to that is I see a lot of teamwork, but I do see people complaining about like the lack of teamwork. But a lot of times when I see people complaining about a lack of teamwork, it's not because there's no teamwork. It's because people won't like agree specifically with them and help them track down their specific ideas.
Yes.
But there's a shitload of teamwork in the groups. It's just that the loudest people can't convince anyone to help with their ideas because they're generally not very convincing. You know?
Right. So for me, I want, if there's anything I can bring across to people today, is that we should be looking at these kind of like a murder investigation, right? Like we have to interview all suspects and rule them out, right? But here, it's like I got kicked out of several groups because they're like, we're here for Herman Park in Houston. You're out of your goddamn mind if you think it's Tranquility Park. Get out of our group. And I'm like, so you're basically saying you've decided it's a 6'3" guy that's the culprit, and you're not going to look at any women that are 5'7" because you're damn sure it's a 6'3" guy.
Well, just like in a murder investigation, you got to follow the evidence too.
Exactly.
Like you can't just push it aside. You can't be like, oh, there's like a knife over here, but what if they shot somebody? Like, you can't
Right.
do that.
Exactly.
Which is like kind of what we're doing here when we're looking at like a mausoleum, but John's already gone through all the visual clues in this and he didn't
Right.
mention anything about a mausoleum. But so now we're shooting at the dark.
Right. So, but see, I'm saying he didn't discuss it because it does give away part of the overall methodology, is what I'm trying to say, right?
How
Because
would be an how just out of coincidence, or just out of curiosity, how would him saying, "Oh, I fashioned the Cleveland painting after a mausoleum," when
Right.
there's a giant statue that you're cutting off that's generally not on mausoleums, and there's a like, how would that give anything away? How would him be like, "Yeah, I fashioned it after a mausoleum"? How would that give anything away?
Because let me bring this up. Because I'm overruling, overriding common denominator here is the Civil War. That I'm convinced it all impacts people involved in the Civil War. That's what he can't give away, even though Ben's already said that. But I feel like he can't confirm
why can't you
it,
talk about it?
looking for all of those clues. And if you look at all of them, they all involve somebody, even in California. I had no idea until I started researching that Fort Mason, people that lived at Fort Mason were at one point involved in the American Civil War.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the Civil War was a big deal, especially in these
Right.
cities that we're in.
But if you
So it's easy to find coincidence.
Yes, but in this particular visual is striking for me, right? For years we all wondered why everything seems to be on the East Coast and then he jumps all the way to California. And this map perfectly tells you these were all just territories. They weren't states, they weren't involved. So he seems to have like gone for all the major players in the Civil War for the most part. Cleveland I'm still working on because they didn't have a whole lot to do with it. But
I wouldn't say you went for all the
Garfield was involved in the Civil War, so he was a general in the Civil War. So in California, so at Fort Mason, we have generals that were in the Civil War. At Cleveland, Chicago, obviously Grant. I mean, is that something I'm working on? That's a greater picture, not for today, but I'm just trying to plant seeds here. As you know, Fort Sumter is. I mean, it just goes on. But anyhow, so going back.
But so somebody in the comments made a really good post.
Yeah.
How does Boston with Paul Revere have anything to do with the Civil War?
That's the one that's stumping me. The only thing I found recently was a USS Constitution was not used in the Civil War.
No.
They took it away so that it wouldn't be destroyed. For whatever reason, they thought it wouldn't be able to put up with the British militia bombarding it. So, but I'm still working on that piece. Yes, absolutely. Good point. See,
I mean, so yeah, now the comments are basically like, where are the clues that anything's related to the Civil War?
Right.
So I don't like we just sort of jumped into the Civil War thing, and I don't necessarily understand.
No, it was just to explain that the methodology overall. I don't have time to like wrap it all, package it together.
Got it.
It's like it's overwhelming to be honest. Like I could tell you, like now that I think I've solved it, things are starting to make sense. Like I said, so Chicago for me, it has to do with the Windy City, the fire that destroyed them, and the reconstruction efforts from Grant, right? For me. And then when we go to Cleveland, the same thing. It's having to do with Garfield's death. And the one clue that nobody talks about, another one that can be a little frustrating, is also the main topic subject of the puzzle. Because again, it's more poetic and historical. I think people get turned off.
So was this John's idea for all of these overarching things or Byron's? Whose idea?
No, Byron's.
But Byron had no input at all on the burial spot for Cleveland. So what is Garfield like? How could he have made an overarching thing if he had no input on the burial site?
Because I think he chose Cleveland because of Garfield. And John said, hey, since you can't find a spot that ties to anything Greek, how about the Greek cultural gardens? That's how I'm looking at it, right? So that was where like a shared half and half kind of, collaboration to make it happen. But the point being here is the very first verse says beneath two countries, right?
Okay.
Right. So El Greco, that's Spanish, means the Greek. So that's two countries. And you know how some people think he made a mistake? Because this is on the right side where Andy and I keep forgetting their names, started digging behind these panels. Actually, well, I mean, officially it's right here, but behind but it wound up being on the other side.
I mean, just for clarification, El Greco is a Greek painter and sculptor. He's like
Yes,
he's a
he
guy.
did Greek, but his name is in Spanish. He got his career, his success in Spain, so they dubbed him El Greco.
Okay,
So that's beneath two countries because it's literally buried. People keep saying
it's one. It's buried
right,
beneath one.
right,
Like in your example, El
right.
Greco is a Spanish for the Greek.
Yes, so those are two languages, two different countries.
It's two different languages. It's a
Yes.
lot of different countries, dude. A lot of countries speak Spanish. It's not just like we're not
No,
living.
no, I know, but it's the language, Spanish and Greek. He's, I guess,
Okay, but neither of those are countries. And
right.
a lot of
Okay.
countries. So this would be like beneath
So then
20,
why would he
20
say
countries.
between two countries?
I don't know,
Right.
but it's not because of El Greco. Like I can at least say that pretty confidently because
Okay.
that doesn't make any sense. I get that it's two different languages. I
But
get that it's
remember,
Greek and it's Spanish.
but remember, you're thinking like normal brain, right?
Well, is Byron like dumb or something? Byron doesn't
No,
know that Spanish is spoken in
and
more than one country?
he overshot it with the complexity, is what I'm saying. I would have said between two countries, not beneath. Why beneath two countries? Right? That's what I'm saying. That's how his brain was
Because
wired.
it's on a hill, dude. I don't know, but
Okay.
I mean it's more reasonable to say because it's on a hill and there are two countries above him than it is to say, oh, because Spanish, this Greek word written in Spanish, two countries, even though it's a lot more than that.
Okay.
You know, either way, it's kind of stretchy and kind of. It's
No,
fine
I
to say
get that.
we don't know. Like it's fine
Right.
to say that.
Yes. No, I totally get it. Trust me, that's why it's taken so long to try and decipher his bizarre logic. In fact, like
I
I
don't
told
think it's
people,
that bizarre.
I think so. It's not. You're right. In fact, the way I've described it to people in the past, it's kind of like dad jokes, right? Where they're funny but they're not, right? So you have to get it or you don't. It's that simple, right?
Okay.
He thought that was a great way to explain things. I don't know, but obviously, this is why we're here 40 years later, unable to find them, right? What was the next one I wanted to show you? Oh, so now just again to test it, right? About using his logic the way I think he intended. When we go to the images, now you can Google again. So this is one that I found really interesting. Why did he choose to make her a butterfly, right? So how would you describe the lifespan of a butterfly?
In
So
stages.
yes, and what are those stages called?
I don't know. There's a lot. There's larva, pupa.
Metamorphosis. So look up
I
the
mean,
definition.
the process is called a
The process.
metamorphosis.
Yes, and if you Google it, define it, it's changing, going from one state of being to another, right? So obviously it's the African theme, so going from enslaved to freedom, to being free, right? And then and if you follow that kind of wonky logic, it dawned on me as well. I always thought, why is this branch coming past her? And that's when I realized that's probably maybe another figure of speech to extend an olive branch, right? To make peace with someone.
Okay.
And the lion's portrait, that's a classic portrait called A Lion in Waiting. Because it's waiting to pounce on its victim, on its prey.
Sorry, I'm looking at something.
Yeah, no, go for it. And then again, I thought, so the flowers and the jewels, that's what I'm saying. This is a lot. I don't even know how to summarize this as an actual cipher where you like adjust things to solve stuff. But the flower, and by the way, a lot of this is from other people's ideas. I just want to be clear. I am not taking credit for at least 65 to 70% of this stuff. It's again, people posting on Facebook and I'm like, whoa, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like I get what they're saying. And so various people have posted that the flowers mean things, the jewels represent something. Like this one, why put it in a dark corner? We know this is tied to a verse about pirates, right? So again, I just researched, and there was in 1980 or 81, they opened some cellar near City Hall, near the slave quarters where they used to sell slaves. that actually had pirates down there, like on display as a tourist attraction. So it was in the dark depths, in the dark cellar. So why, like that? Why is he putting jewels? So, okay, so and this, why I like this image so much is why didn't he just do this? Why didn't he just put the jewel right smack in the center like you did? Well, not you, but the person, right? It's like, why is he making them an active participant in the painting? Like New Orleans, why hide the jewel in the clock face, right? It's hidden. It's in a costume, right? What's the word I'm thinking of? Oh gosh, it's a common word that I can't remember right now. But again, this is a lot. I've been struggling to like articulate it in a way that's easy to follow and easy for people to digest. But again, and another one that so with this one, let me think what else I wanted to say. I think that was it. But yeah, I just gone through most of them and they all have some kind of figure of speech in them. Like this one, the same thing. To build castles in the sky, so to speak, right? And then I just researched this one. This is another one. The landing site was Marquette, I think is his name. And it's like a block away from City Hall. Same thing, right? Across the river, a block away from City Hall. And the guy was obviously a priest or whatever, and he had two assistants. So he's juggling two balls, right? So like I'm thinking, putting this out there as symbolism to try and interpret it and then carry it across all the different puzzles. And they all seem to have something happening that feels like a figure of speech.
Okay.
And so what can I go back to? Oh, and so like, in fact, like, and one thing also, I know most people try to overcomplicate things instead of trying to keep them simple with how things are represented in the images. One that has now been chatted about a lot is the hockey reference in the Boston one. And so I took a look at that and then I came up with something much more simpler than. I always wondered why this weird shape was there and this one square. So to me, it looks now, if I'm looking for a hockey reference, my brain is thinking this, where most people are thinking it's this thing at the top.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Right? But for me, why are these here? They make no sense.
Well, they don't really make any sense in regards to hockey either.
Right.
That doesn't look like a stick and a puck is round.
That's what I thought as well, right? It looks like a weird shape, obviously not very accurate.
Okay.
And that's the problem with these, right? In some, he was super duper, like one for one match, and then in others, he just kind of went off wonky.
Wait, you're saying okay? So even though that doesn't look like a hockey stick and hockey pucks are round, it's still a hockey stick and hockey puck because he just didn't want to be exact. Like they're nothing alike.
Right.
And you're really only comparing them because you're already looking for a hockey. Like there's no way I could show somebody those two images and they're like, oh, hockey, eh? There's no way that could happen. The other one that people say it looks like a hockey stick. It just looks like one.
Right.
I don't know. So I guess I don't understand.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking out loud. Like I'm not saying I'm one.
Okay. All right.
Food for thought. Sorry, I should have prefaced that. Yes. So this is the one that does look more like a hockey stick.
Yes.
And in my interpretation of the verse, I think it's the path.
Oh, you were the one that posted the path. Okay.
No, that was somebody else.
Oh, okay. Because that path didn't make any sense to me. It was weird.
Right. So is this the right one? Sorry, wrong one. What did I do with it? No. Oh, I thought I'd saved a screenshot for this. Damn it. I guess I didn't. But basically, no, that's the wrong one. So, oh, that's right. I'm in a different folder. This one starts to look like that. So I found a visitor map. I think the puzzle starts at the Old North Church and he leads you in the area of Paul Revere's direction, which is this marker up here. That's where he crossed. Go ahead.
You just got very low, very, very quiet.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's
Let me adjust my mic.
That's better. Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Oh, maybe because I moved away from the mic.
Oh, okay. I figured it was like a setting or something. I'm sorry. I just wanted people to be able to hear you.
No worries. And so it starts at the Old North Church. Okay. So following his wonky logic, people are confused with a lamp lit at midnight, whatever. So the two climbed the tower, right? Two guys, two lanterns, Diucides or whatever, and Xenophon. And then they're actually buried at Copp's Hill Burying Ground, both of them. So it starts and ends with them for whatever reason. That's what I'm thinking, right? I'm just trying to keep this simple to what makes sense. We know he mentions the rink, the Colosseum with metal walls. We know he talks about the middle section with the tower. What's another one? He says to look back at the stairs, which is the part, this little Copp's Hill, I forget what it's called, landing thing right next to the burial ground. So that's another thing I want to be clear on. In my understanding, I don't see any journeys. I think he mentions these points just so that you pass the landing site of the founding fathers. Like there's no need to mention the USS Constitution. How does that add value in trying to solve what's over here? Right? So he throws in all this like informational stuff that I think he was very passionate about and found very interesting, but that ultimately wasn't really needed to solve anything.
Well, you would think if that was the case, he would talk about Faneuil Hall.
Faneuil Hall, right? Yes,
it was his favorite building in Boston, and he
right.
was particularly not obsessed, but interested in it.
Right.
But
and that's another one. Let me bring up the image again.
And wasn't the U.S. Constitution on the other side of the harbor back in the 80s? Wasn't it closer to the park? I thought it was.
That I'll be honest.
Okay.
But like this is another thing to simple symbolism, right? The peregrine falcon. Like you just have to Google it, why that's there, because that's the fastest bird in North America. So obviously Paul Revere had to move fast that night, right? That's the kind of wonky logic I'm talking about. The same thing with the flower. It's budding. It looks like a network. If you look at back in the day, NBC, they all had these like budding flower networks. The most funny enough, the one that looks like
NBC a peacock?
A peacock with the feathers. So that's funny symbolism. People don't realize that was showing transmitting information, right? But the best one I would say is the Canadian network. I forget what the actual name is, but theirs is almost like a perfect match for this. Because again, why add that detail? What does it add to the painting to show that the flower is budding, that it's moving, that it's expanding?
I mean, all the flowers in the paintings are budding. They're flowers. That's what flowers
do. Right, but they're not. A lot of them are stationary. Like especially Cleveland and New Orleans, they look dead. They're like lifeless. If you really look at them.
But they're budding. Like so they're flowering.
Budding as in growing, like physically, like physical motion.
That flower has physical motion in Boston.
That's with these little etchings or whatever you want to call them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, that's what it is. If you look at their logo, it'll help.
CBC. Okay.
Let's look at the CBC. And in that, give me a quick sec. I need a bio break. I'll be right back.
Yeah, man. Take your time. Maybe it's the CBC old logo. I don't see. So for reference, it looked like this, like that. I don't understand. Okay, so I have a second. We raised $7,000 for Marge. That's pretty awesome. Over for her family, so that should take care of. Like they needed that, so that should help. Tim did a great job. He's giving some stuff away. Thanks, guys. I got to answer a bunch of emails tonight. Yeah. I'm going to try to acknowledge comments more. So if you guys expanded to help disguise the number zip code. Yeah. That's kind of what I think too.
Okay, so what are the comments now?
Oh, somebody was just talking about how most of that, it's not filigree, but it's designed to help disguise the numbers, which I kind of agree with.
Yeah, of course.
I don't understand wonky logic.
Yes.
Okay. So Byron was either smart or he wasn't.
Oh, he was very.
Okay, so then if Byron was smart, why would he use wonky logic? He could just use actual logic. He could.
Well,
like
I think Boston Pops kind of summarizes what I call.
But John's not Byron.
Right. Oh, John did this. That was his idea.
John did Boston Pops. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Byron that suggested he do the
No.
Pops. Got it. So ultimately, I do want to be clear as well that, as several people have mentioned to me, and again, I don't take offense. They basically told me if I'm so sure about my theory or my methodology theory that I should go and find one, and then maybe people will believe me.
I don't think that's unfair.
And absolutely no, that's 100% correct. And I say, yes, you're absolutely right. Now we can get to San Francisco where it's a little bit better than before, but I'm still a little stuck on next steps. So for me, this is all symbolism to represent civic centers. So
somebody donated $50 to Marge's family. That was nice. Thank you, Joseph. I'll do that. Sorry, go ahead. Symbolism.
No, yeah, symbolism. For me, you have to live in a city to really understand things. Like I said, I already have a trip booked to Cleveland now, and to Boston to finally see things for myself. Because Chicago, like I said, for me was an eye opener. I was completely shocked that nobody has mentioned that fact that from the bridge you can see all of the clues clearly at this time of year, right? I mean, because there's no leaves to block the Lincoln statue.
People have mentioned that. Well, you can't really from the bridge because the Symphony Halls is covered by the Art Institute. You can't see past that big ass brick building, so you can't see that. You can't see the Fountain of the Great Lakes because it's blocked by a big ass brick building.
Sorry, the verse clues. There's a difference between. I think that's another point that people are stuck on. There's a difference between a verse clue and an image clue.
Well, I mean, that's pretty obvious, but the image clues tend to be either direct, something that you could take a full Polaroid picture of, or like indirect, like Boston Pops, just about a city. Like here's what I don't get. How old are you? Roughly, how old are you? You don't have to tell me your age.
Oh no! I was born I'm an '80s kid. See my hat?
but when in the were you?
Oh no, I was born in '72. So
72. Okay.
Yeah. So when
do you remember what communication was like in the '80s?
Yes.
Do you like? How are you? Sort of. What's the word I'm looking for? Like it would be almost impossible for because all of the stuff that you're talking about is image based stuff. We haven't even talked about the verses. We're not. I mean, like other than like we're taking words away from the Boston verse and putting new words back into it with Thucydides and Xenophon representing someone completely different. Like except for changing the verses lines completely, we're not even talking about that. Like the thing that I don't understand about most of the people who get very in depth into methodology is they focus on the paintings. And even John's like, I just painted what Byron told me to paint. Like he sent me Polaroid pictures and I painted it. And but the amount, like this would have to be John's puzzle in order for any of this to work like you want it to work. It would have to be John. John would have to decide everything. John would have to pick the dig spots. John would have to pick where the verses start versus where the verses end. Like John would have to be in charge for all of this to work. And Byron would basically have no input whatsoever. He would just write some shit based on what John wants him to write. Like I don't understand with the lack of communication in the 80s and the way John's described them working on this puzzle via like telephone and fax machine and mailing each other Polaroids. Like John wouldn't even be able to now if you and I were to work on a puzzle and I were to make your
Oh, it's
painting,
different.
I could just make a mock-up of the painting
Right.
in like Photoshop, or I could take a digital photo, I could text it to you. In order for Byron to see any of these paintings in progress, he would have to fly to Cleveland to look at them. Like there's no way John could, I mean, he gets sent a Polaroid, but that's like he would not be able to verify any of this. So I think what I'm asking you is, with the complete lack of communication about the methodology on in John's part, the complete lack of communication with Byron explaining to John in meticulous detail how each of these puzzles work so that he can redo them meticulously in the paintings, how would this be possible?
Right. So
like it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me if we go with like the common thought, right?
Right.
Byron gives John a couple of things he had to put in the paintings, and you find those couple of things and follow the verse and you do what the verse tells you to. But once you start getting into these super methodical solves just with the paintings, you kind of lose me, because it would be impossible to do this.
No. I'm not by any means saying that all you need is a painting. No. What I was trying to highlight is that people are confusing what I call city identifiers versus actual verse clues. Meaning that he put stuff in there just so that if you're walking around town, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's part of my city, right? That you would recognize things. But ultimately, they're not actually on the walk. So in this video, I can show you now clearly. I realize now that I filmed this backwards, but because we start at the fence and fixture area where it was buried, right? And then I don't know if I can make this larger, but you can see Lincoln back here, right? That's the little border thing.
Okay.
Then,
yeah, I believe you.
Right, it's there. Then there's another bridge. There's a Spearman. Oops, clicked the wrong thing. There's Congress Hotel. There's a Roosevelt University. Going. And the Symphony is right on the other side there
of the big brick wall
of the
what did you call it?
The fountain of the 5 fountains, or what's it called?
The fountain of the Great Lakes.
Yeah, but here's the Symphony right here, so you can see it. That's what I said. At this time of year, you're able to see it. Obviously, if you were there in spring or summer, the trees would all block the view, right? But then going, see, you end up back at the fence and fixture area. So that's for me a more supporting evidence that I think he did intend for most clues to be visible, verse clues. So like the water tower, that's not a verse clue. That's just an image clue. But the things that you needed to solve them are all visual. And in fact, I was watching the video you recently put of Jason Krupak, and he also mentioned it when he was doing his spiel. He said, oh, you can kind of technically see most things from here where it was buried at. So they all have the same thing in common. The same thing with Cleveland. If you're standing at the wall, you can see the Italian fountains. You can see the columns. You can see the curving road. That's still a little controversial, but I think it's just the road right in front as it curves. So all of them have the same pattern. And JJP has acknowledged that they used some kind of pattern, some kind of template, right? So that's where I'm trying to figure all that out.
Yeah.
And for the cities that like I said, if you look at Tranquility Park, the same thing. Most of the clues are all at Tranquility Park in 1981.
Except for the 982.
That's the one thing that kills the whole thing. Yes, I agree 100%.
And I mean, it also doesn't work at Roanoke, because you start and you go 14 miles away. Like you start at the Wright Brothers Monument and then you go 14 miles away to another island.
Yeah, I'm leaving that one for later once I feel more.
I mean, so far we're at like a quarter of the puzzles it doesn't work for.
Right. Well, it does if I actually figure out how to apply the cipher is what I'm saying, right? I'm still working on it. Like I said, I haven't been able to like an actual cipher when it says you turn left once, turn right twice, right? That kind of thing.
Well, here's the thing. In order for something to be a pattern, it should work the same way.
Yes, once you have an understanding of how it works.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
All right, I get it, but like,
yeah, you're right. It's a cookie cutter, right? I should be able to stamp
Yeah, exactly.
over and over, right? Yes, I'm trying to get there. Yes.
And if you can't, maybe instead of forcing it so that you can, you
Right.
just take a step back and go, maybe I'm wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Because
Like I
like
said,
I get maybe in some world you could figure out the 982. In fact, but that's pretty
so
that's
my
pretty
connection,
exact. But
my
there's no world in which you can stand on the island of Roanoke and see the Wright brothers monument. You just can't. There's
right.
no world. It's way too far
Oh,
away.
that was another one. Good. Thank you for bringing that up. Let's go to that one. Um, Again, following the wonky logic, here's what I've been able to come up with. Where are we? Let's see. Yes. So, this is Rob. I can't say his name.
Carajulio?
Carajulio. God dang! No wonder I was never gonna.
Please say his name correctly, because each time you say it, it's an advertisement for his restaurant. Eat
Right.
at Carajulio's. I think
Carajulio. Yes.
Rob should pay like whoever comes on the live stream like $30 every time they say the
Right.
name Carajulio. So you should have gotten like $60 right now. Rob
Bro.
owes you $60.
Right.
It's a really good restaurant though. You should eat at Carajulio's.
I will definitely, where is it located?
It's in Sarasota, I think.
Florida. Okay.
Yeah, it's in Florida.
Well, if I'm ever in Florida, I'll stop by.
Here's a rousing review for you. Joellen Trilling ate there twice and said it was the best thing she had ever had.
Wow, nice. All right, well, see, again, I'm highlighting this to show that it's not just me coming up with this. Other people plant seeds and it somehow registers in my brain and makes sense to me, right? So this is what we would call a triptych in art, right? And so to me, that means he's telling three stories. He is. You just said it. He's talking about the Wright brothers. Then he starts talking about Virginia Dare. And then he starts talking about other stuff. And it's like, dude, pick a theme and go with it, right? Like, what do those two things have? Why do those things have to be connected? I don't understand that at all.
They don't have to be. I mean, there doesn't have to be a theme. Why does there have to be the theme that you're talking about? The only reason it doesn't make sense is just because you're packaging into there has to be this sort of theme.
No, I meant
have to be.
I meant a theme as in like when you paint a painting, it's a landscape, right? You don't do a landscape with a sci-fi building. Like that's what I mean by.
I think I understand. Yeah. I misunderstood. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So from the first time I saw this, I said this looks like an underwater scene. This looks like it's underwater. The bubbles are floating up. You can see how the clouds look kind of like bubbles being popped and stretched out. And so I kept looking at this, and the word that came to mind with this was steampunk. I was like, this reminds me of steampunk, right? Mm-hmm. And so then I remembered thinking with the underwater theme, it reminded me of this, that it's got an underwater theme, right? Again, using this wonky logic theory of mine. Then I looked at the image where it shows where did I go? I have so many things open, I'm losing track. One thing that always got me was the spoon with the pea, right? Like, why is the spoon catching a pea? Like that's just such weird imagery, right? And that's when I researched it and I found, apparently there's a pea island. There was a pea island thing where there were ships in storms that would go out to recover people who's got shipwrecked, right?
Yeah.
So, Pea Island, right? They're scooping people out of the water. So that's, again, see what I'm saying? This sounds like goofy dad joke logic. Like I would not do it that way, right? But I'm saying it's a start, a possibility. Again, in all of this, I'm not saying I'm 100% correct. It's just food for thought, right?
Yeah. It's a good conversation at least. It's good for conversation at least. Is what I mean.
Oh, and then that's the other. So going back to your question, being that I was born in 1972, I used to be a pet shop boy where every weekend I would go by the pet shop and just stand there and stare in the aquariums for hours, right? And so it reminded me, that's when it dawned on me, like, wait a minute. Back then, when I was a kid, it was super duper popular to have castle ruins in your aquarium with the scuba diver floating next to it. I don't know if you're my age and if you remember that.
No, I do remember I do remember these Pet Shop castles. I'm sorry, when you said growing up in the 70s, I was a Pet Shop boy. I was expecting you to be like, and I really liked the West End girls. But
And I do like the Pet Shop, yes. I did say it for that point, right? So, so to me, basically, I'm going back. It's an underwater scene. What that means, I don't know. Is it maybe the aquarium? Again, wasn't the aquarium there a new attraction at the time? Like I think they opened it in 1978 or something like that. Um, so again, I'm following the logic, right? So to me, it all makes sense. But again, until I dig one up, I don't know that anyone will believe me.
do you
But I'm hoping. Go
do
ahead.
you think John was a bad artist?
No, no. Oh, sorry. Thank you for reminding me. You just solved, I think, my biggest riddle. You asked what's wonky logic, and hearing you talk, the way you described their, I don't want to say miscommunication, but their communication abilities, I think that is what created the wonky logic. That you're absolutely right. Someone 3 states away calling you saying, hey, make sure you hide that thing in there or wherever you want, right? They're obviously not going to get it accurate. So yes, I can safely say now, I think the wonky logic is defined by their collaborative abilities at the time. Because you and I now, we could do a share screen and knock it out of the park, right? Because
The reason I'm asking is because you keep talking about John's art, right? Like you're talking about this underwater theme.
yeah,
Do you not think he could think of a better way to get you to an underwater theme than giving you like a British medieval knight's armor and a couple of bubbles?
well, that's because it has to do with Virginia Dare, right? The English colony. So he wanted to connect it to England. And so yes, it would be an English castle ruin,
Okay.
right? I mean, he's obviously the Scarecrow Knight. He looks like a knight as well.
Okay.
But yeah, again, you actually said it better than me. Like this is back then, right? There wasn't, they didn't have a lot of tools at their disposal to come up with more elaborate ways, I guess, or more accurate ways. I don't know. Yeah, it's funny. I never really thought it out until the way you articulated it was magnificent for me. I was like, oh yeah, yeah, now I get it. Yes, it was
So
pretty impossible to collaborate back then.
so what you're saying is this puzzle is a result of them just screwing up?
I wouldn't say screwing up, but I would just say that, yeah, that it's hard. So if you're sitting 2 states away and you say, hey, make sure you incorporate this one clue, but don't make it so obvious, you're going to trust that the artist is going to try his best to do what you told him, but you're not there with him to say, hey, change that color, make that bigger, make that smaller, right?
Okay.
So
So
yeah,
you're saying that the puzzle like what you're saying with that is due to lack of communication, the
right.
puzzle is bad. Like
No,
they didn't get it right. They screwed up.
no, no. And I want to be clear that I'm saying they did the best with what they had, is what
But they
I'm saying.
screwed up because they
In a
didn't
way,
have
I get. I'm saying the glass is half full, but I do have a take issue when people say it's half empty, right? There are, I'm sure you've seen people. In fact, thank you. One of them was that Scott guy. He and I got into it because he basically said they were morons that got it all wrong.
Oh yeah, well I see. I don't think they were morons. Like yeah, and I get
No,
it.
absolutely
He was
not.
kind of a dick.
Right.
I don't think they were morons. I think
No,
they were
no, not at
hindered
all.
by their time, and
Sure.
where other people are where other searchers and
Yeah.
you guys may be right. I may be wrong. I don't know. Where other searchers fall into this, where they're like, okay, we have to get a little broader. I
Right.
think because they were hindered. I
Right.
think you have to get a little simpler because they were
Yes.
hindered.
Right.
So it's not it's neither one of us are right, neither one of us
Oh,
are wrong. You know, it's
yeah.
just two
No, but
competing sort
see,
of ideas.
but you just proved my point of why we need to have these conversations. Because I'm being sincere when I say you've just gave me an epiphany. I was like, oh my God, I never stopped to put myself in their shoes.
Yeah.
That yes, they weren't in the same room 24/7 knocking this out together. So how can we expect it to be flawless?
And Nick Blowen, I suck with names. He asked if JJP stayed at Byron's house at the time of the paintings, and I don't think it was during the time of the painting. I
The
don't
what?
think. He asked, didn't JJP stay at Byron's house at the time of the paintings? And I get well, maybe because he said that
I
he
think there was some
there
of
was
that. Yeah,
once, yeah.
I heard, yeah.
I remember he said once
Yeah,
he
but
would stay at Byron's house,
yeah,
Byron's apartment, and Byron would call
to
Sandy or
your
something.
point, they were not in a studio
Yeah, they
together
weren't. Yeah, they weren't
ordering
working together.
coffee and saying, okay, make that better, change that color. Like, you're right, that never really happened. It could have on an occasion here and there, but to your point, it wasn't on a standing basis, regular, recurring, like where you would get perfection out of it.
Yeah, I think the easiest example of this is the fort in the St. Augustine painting. Like if
Right,
they worked so closely together that all of these intricate things in the paintings
right,
were in there, there's
right,
no way Byron would have let John put the fort in the St. Augustine painting and then later on be like, "Oh, that's too easy. I got to cover it up." You know, like he
right,
just didn't know.
yeah,
He was that disconnected from the paintings. He just didn't know it was there.
right, yeah, good point. So, I'm gonna call that now my wonky logic theory.
All right.
That they weren't cuckoo or whatever, right? It's just that they had to deal with what they had at the time. And that's caused us, a lot of us, confusion now.
Yeah. Okay.
What's another one? Trying to think on the images. Uh, well, the New Orleans one, that I'm convinced is that Louis Armstrong Park. So it used to be called Beauregard. JPT Beauregard was a Creole general in the Civil War. He was a part of the Confederacy, and he was Creole. What more traditional Louisiana culture reference could you possibly incorporate than Beauregard, right? And Beauregard means beautiful gaze, beautiful view, which is why we have a mask, right? And so there's a plaque there that's been there for years that talks about how the slaves on Sundays were allowed to go out and mingle and spend the afternoon hours together, right? So that is really clear, right? Then let me show
That's
you
an
the
interesting way to describe Congo Square.
right, yes. So by the way, in all of these cities that I've investigated, I've actually gone to the archives and like looked at their history. Like I'm not just like willy-nilly,
Ra-
coming up with
Rachel
ideas.
Malley has a question for you.
Yes.
And she's probably going to have to rephrase because I think I missed it. She asked, please ask him about the bubbles in Boston. All water symbols? Question mark. I'm thinking she's saying because you said the bubbles in Roanoke were
Right.
underwater bubbles. Does that mean the bubbles in Boston are also underwater bubbles?
It could be. I mean, Paul Revere had to cross the Boston Harbor to go across the water to Charlestown. So it is.
Did Paul?
Yeah.
Revere
So a lot of
cross-
people don't realize that's what I was saying. He didn't run. The Midnight Ride was not through Boston. He was already across the water waiting for the famous line, for the sign, the signal. What is it? I had this. It was if one by land, two if by sea. Meaning that if the British are coming by land, light one lantern. But if they're coming by sea in ships, then light two lanterns. He was already across the water waiting for the signal. And once he saw the two lanterns from the two guys, he took off to go notify everybody.
He was already across the harbor because it's where his house was. Like
No, his house was in downtown Boston.
Paul Revere's house is like right behind Langone Park.
So
It's right up the
we're
steps.
talking about different waters. Let me show you the image and then it'll help. The tour guide visitor map
Okay.
is what really did it for me. So Boston.
Yeah, because maybe I'm confused.
Yes. So see here, it says Paul Revere waiting for the signal from the Old North Church, and he's standing. But his house is down here.
But that doesn't. That's just an illustration, dude. That doesn't mean he was standing there.
No. He was but he was. So a lot of people, again, trust me, I've never studied the Paul Revere ride until now. That yeah, he was already across the water. He was getting a head start. I trust me, people can look it up.
Okay. All right. Other people say he took a canoe across the harbor. That's fine.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
thought that he rode from. Okay.
Because that's so the confusion there is that the guy that wrote the poem misinformed all of us. The Longfellow guy, the big poet, right? So he's the one that did Paul Revere's Midnight Ride poem. He, like everybody, right, that the alters adds a little bit of fiction to make stories better, right? That's what he
Yeah.
did. But yeah, what I learned in my research is that he was already across the water where so this diagram is wrong, by the way. He was actually where Old Ironsides is shown here. He was on this side.
Okay.
So yeah, see, I
Now
hadn't
people are
even
just telling me I should study Paul Revere more, but I'm good. It's fine.
thought.
I'm fine learning like this.
Anywho, but the point being, see that here to work on this stuff, you have to do a deep dive into history. And unfortunately, most of us are not history buffs like Byron, but hey, we're giving it the old college try, as they say.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so where was I gonna go next before we digressed? Gosh, I think I was gonna show. And by the way, keep the questions coming because like that, I hadn't even
Oh
thought.
no, they're just making fun of me now. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, that seems to be like a team favorite, huh?
Yeah, it's fine. I'm good with it. It's fine.
And you're a
I've
good
always
sport.
told everybody, like, I'm an idiot. I barely graduated high school. Like, you guys should really find somebody better to do these live streams.
So one thing I wanted to share with you. So again, I don't normally talk like that, but I do have a graduate degree, and I did take art courses, and I did take creative writing courses, and
You
all
should
that
do
kind of.
these live streams.
So, but no, but here's the thing. We're doing it the way he wanted it, right? You have the gift of gab, as they say, right? Like you have that charming charisma that people are drawn to.
No.
Like you have persona, right? Like I'm just a dork. Like I don't
Dude,
command.
I'm a huge. It's fine. We can both be dorks.
Right.
But let's not pretend I have charisma.
Okay. Well, hey, you seem to draw a crowd, and that's what we need, and that's your gift to the hunt, right? You bring us together, and hopefully, we're moving in a better direction.
Hopefully.
Um,
I mean, I do agree with you about the learning, right? Like,
Yeah.
especially as adults, like, there's nothing like if the secret brings anything into our lives, it's that. George Wharton
Absolutely.
graduated high school early. Yeah, that was. I'll tell that story one day. That was. It's not as impressive as it seems.
Byron graduated high
No.
school.
I graduated high school early. A year
Oh,
early. It's not as impressive as it seems.
All right. Well, if people want to ask questions, it probably.
Seriously, they're just making fun of me. It's fine.
Oh,
We can keep going.
I'm trying to think of another one that I've worked on. Oh yeah, so New York, I mean. Again about the symbolism, right? This is the methodology I've got so far. So how I said I haven't finalized it. You can see there are empty spots. I'm constantly going back and revising it once I make progress. But like St. Augustine, right? The landing site is at the Shrine of Our Lady of La Leche, which is right next to the Fountain of Youth Park, right? So again, all of these, is that coincidence that all of these are right by the landing site? Another one I have not talked of, let's see, I mentioned Marquette, the same thing, it's across the river from City Hall. Allen's Landing is like a 5-minute walk from Tranquility Park. The one in New Orleans is the one that's stumping me. Like I said, I found 2 locations. I can't figure out which one's which. The Chicago one is right across from the Wrigley building at the river. The Settlers Landing I showed already in Cleveland, and San Francisco. The first European ship in San Francisco Bay was at Aquatic Park, and you guys were all there. And I play softball on weekends, which is why I didn't meet you all that year. Gosh, that was so long ago now. Wasn't that like 2020?
In Boston? Oh.
No, San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco. Oh God, that was 2018, 2019.
It was 20. That's right. Yes. Wow.
Yeah, that was a long
That
time
because I
ago.
live right down the street, but I was stuck doing other stuff.
That's all right. It was small, and really all we did was drink.
Oh, okay. So, what else? Let's see. I'm trying to see more imagery that can help. So, okay, so let's come back to my home city. Where is San Francisco? So, I live down the street from Civic Center. So, when I see this, this looks like a balcony to me, right? Like she's standing on a balcony with a beautiful view of the mountainscape. So in Civic Center, the most famous balcony is what we call the mayor's balcony, is where very famous speeches have been made over the decades. People get married there, like you have to reserve a spot months in advance to get married at that balcony. It's spectacular. I know everybody's talking about the Fairmont symbolism, but for me, if you walk into City Hall, you will see, where did I put it? That's actually the old city logo. Did I not put that here?
To be fair, only one of these two ideas was, confirmed to be correct by John.
So not the Fairmont.
No, the Fairmont.
Oh, the Fairmont, he's saying is the Fairmont, for
Is
sure.
correct, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the one that I'm tripping up on.
Well, that's 5 that we're tripping up on now.
Okay. I'm saying that I don't believe it's the Fairmont.
Okay, that's fine.
The Fairmont has nothing to do with anything. No one talks about it.
Yeah.
Like it's at the top of the steep hill.
But the thing you have to acknowledge here is
what?
You have to make a choice when you do this.
Okay.
You have to either say that the Fairmont is correct or that John Palancar just doesn't know anything about his paintings.
I know what I think is that his memory is failing, and he's made that comment before. He says that he cannot remember everything until he sees it, right?
Yeah, everything, but not like major themes. Like it's not like he's and when he's like fuzzy, he tells you he's fuzzy. He doesn't guess. So it's not like he could be like, shit, what was that? Was it City Hall or was it a random hotel in Nob Hill? You know what I'm saying? He was and there was no reason for him to lie about that because he thought the cast was already out of the ground. He thought it was solved. So he was like, oh shit, they must have finally figured out the Fairmont clue. Like there was he wasn't trying to, no, he wasn't in like an interview. He didn't think that comment would ever go public.
Yes.
He just said it, when he thought it was found. He was very excited. So in order for it to be really anywhere not close to that hotel, you have to say that John doesn't know how his own puzzles work.
So I don't want to say that obviously, but
I'm just saying, like, realistically, when you're talking to other people in the community, that's what's going through their head. Like, so John doesn't know how his own puzzles work. Now, I'm not trying to shut down this conversation at all. We can keep going where you want to go. I'm just saying that when you talk to the general public or the general community about San Francisco, you have to wrestle with that.
Yes, absolutely. No, and I am prepared. That's why, like, I made a comment on Facebook and I basically said, I have to dig it up for people to believe me, right?
Yeah.
That's the only way. And I accept that 100%. But I'm saying now, I do not believe it's the Fairmont. There's nothing to do with, based on the pattern that you've just agreed to, that he chose locations near the historical centers of cities where the landing sites would naturally be. You kind of alluded to that earlier.
I mean, like, I'm just going by your logic like that. I don't think that's a requirement at all.
No,
in the context of your argument, sure.
Right. But you were referencing it and to say that it could just be coincidental, right? But so far, it's been working for the cities I've investigated.
Except for 5.
Except for San Francisco. Like,
well, and
Fairmont
Houston,
is nowhere near anything
and
important.
Cleveland, and
No, but it does work in Cleveland. Remember, it was by Terminal Tower, and
it's like 3 miles from Terminal Tower.
No, but here's the point I was trying to bring home.
In Roanoke, I forgot Roanoke.
That he included sailors and was it the Soldiers and Sailors Monument and Terminal Tower? Why? Like, I get that you're saying he's trying to call out distinct architectural features to have people recognize their cities, I guess. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, all you needed was the Greek garden and the Italian garden to really figure it out.
No. Like how okay, so number one, how are you going to figure out Cleveland from the Greek cultural gardens? Especially you're a kid in 1982. This shit didn't even pop up on the internet. Like, that shows you how famous it was. Didn't even pop up on the internet until the early 2000s.
So that was another underlying premise we didn't cover then. My understanding was that this was geared at like high school and college age kids.
Probably the same age as kids who would read National Lampoon because it was written by the same authors in the same
Right.
style.
So they're not
So you're gonna want to stop like mid-30s. But I don't know.
right.
I don't know so much about younger than high school.
Right. And what I'm getting at is at that age, I remember going to like museums and that kind of stuff, right? With school trips and all that.
Yeah,
It is possible that they could have gone. I'm saying
it's
I'm saying
possible that someone could have gone to the Greek cultural gardens
yes. Why not?
because there's nothing historical there. What are you gonna do? Take a school trip and be like, let's look at a wall and some flowers? There's
Yes,
nothing
it's about
historical there.
culture,
And
about
you got the Cleveland Museum of Arts. You're gonna go to the Greek cultural gardens? Like, I mean, in reality, there is nothing. You in 1982, you couldn't research the Greek cultural gardens.
right. So we're gonna agree to disagree. That's fine. I want to go back to Houston. So in Houston,
Okay.
so I use the theory, right? And based on the wonky logic theory, I went to Houston and I found a plaque at Tranquility Park in Arabic that tells the story of the moon landing.
Yeah,
So
but
there's
it's in a bunch of different languages, though, right?
yes, in a lot of different languages. But the
Yeah.
point I'm making is this is a direct possible link, right? This is a literal interpretation. It's in Arabic. Like what from your experience, what other physical thing, location in Houston is more compelling than a plaque talking about one of America's most important historical moments in Arabic? Like tying those again, tying his love of history and celebration of history and matching languages and immigration things, right? So to me, this is a perfect marriage. But to me, this is a smoking gun, but nobody bought it. I had a couple people click like, I remember, right? But because to your point earlier, it's nowhere near the
Well,
9H.
it's because, and I'll tell you why people don't buy it. The same reason they don't buy the library in Boston if they think about it for more than 5 minutes.
Right.
You know, because for forever people were like, "Oh, those two words are on the library in Boston," but so are 500 other people, and they're not in the right order that they should be according to the verse, right?
Yes, correct.
The same logic here. Yeah, that's written in Arabic, but it's also written in a lot of other languages, and Arabic's like the second most spoken language in the world, third.
Right.
Isn't
Yeah.
it English, Chinese, and Arabic?
But my point being in Houston, I've heard a lot of comments over the years. I had no idea. I grew up around a lot of Middle Eastern folks in Los Angeles, but I didn't know that there were enough in Houston to dedicate a whole puzzle to them.
I mean, it's not that there are enough people in Houston. It's that it's a very, very popular language, and all the popular languages are represented there.
Right.
It's like the Georgia Guidestones. You ever heard about those?
Mhm.
Like the American Stonehenge thing. There's
Yeah.
before they were destroyed by some stupid redneck. They
Right.
had Arabic written on them, but
Right.
there's no like
No, but
there's no
here,
Arabic population in Elbert, Georgia, or Elberton,
I get it.
Georgia.
My point for believing in this plaque is that it ties directly to a significant historical moment in American history. That's the connecting factor. If this was all by itself in some like mall parking lot, then no, I wouldn't be like, oh, that's kind of new, kind of neat, whatever.
No, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, it's the historical component with it, right? The only thing I've seen is that there's some bust of some like Middle Eastern doctor at Rice University across the street from the zoo, but that would mean you would have to walk into the courtyard of the building inside. And as far as I'm concerned, to the best of my knowledge, there's no indoor clue. I know there's a contingency of people that believe that there's what we call, or they call the indoor clue, meaning like the painting that was hung in a museum that inspired the Boston image fairy flying.
There's the windrows in the Fountain of Youth. That's about the only indoor clue I can think of that you can be like, oh yeah, that's that.
Okay.
But I get your point. Like it could be an outlier.
Yeah. So for me, I would rather stick with something full out in public, and it's part of the verse as well, in the center of four alike. Like I mapped it all out. Again, I need to improve my video making skills. I've made several videos, but they're not good enough. They're not compelling enough, obviously. Same with New Orleans. As you all know, Rebecca, she was there with me, but as fate would have it, I've been striking out. When I go to these cities, the weather's always horrible. So they had record-breaking heat in New Orleans when I was there. Here I was actually sick, so I was like struggling to like even hold the camera steady. Like it's a mess.
Are you still in LA?
No, I'm in San Francisco now.
You're in San Francisco. Oh, Jesus Christ! You just said that. I'm sorry. Because you were just talking. I'm so sorry.
No, I was born and raised in LA. And so I've been around multiculturalism all my life. And then I moved up here. But I learned that's the funny thing. When I was in LA is when I discovered the secret. And this will give you a chuckle. After 2 weeks of studying the Montreal puzzle, I flew to Montreal thinking I could solve it.
That's some, yeah, that's some
Right.
confidence there.
And so then as time evolved, I moved up here. And once I moved up here, I remembered, I'm like, wait, there's one right here in the city. And I'll tell you, why I don't believe the Fairmont. I've been everywhere. I've been to the Sutro, I've been to Ina Coldbreath, I've been everywhere, you name it, North Beach, Aquatic Park, Land's End. Every time someone posts something, I go investigate it, and none of it makes sense. Like the only one to me.
I mean, in context of your ideas, that's the thing. Like,
so yeah, so following this logic that I think is what's happening, Fairmont does not fit. Does that mean it doesn't? Or it could. I'm just saying from my vantage point, from what I've learned and studied so far, Fairmont does not fit the theme.
And I guess my response to that would be, so that leaves us with two choices. Either your ideas are wrong or John is wrong.
Misremembering is the word. I believe somebody said.
It would be wrong.
Well, yeah, semantics, right? You say potato, I say potato.
One of those things is wrong. Well, I mean, and he's never backed down from that. And he's talked about it a couple of times. He's never backed down. He's never been like, well, I'm a little fuzzy on that. It's never backed down.
I've been up there multiple times, and it just does not make sense in any way, shape, or form to me. Like I don't get it. Like,
I wish. And Rachel Malley said something that she would be very interested in hearing you talk about San Francisco because you're local, and so would I, because it seems like, and I don't want to toot horns or whatever, but it seems like we put out that video about San Francisco and conversation about San Francisco stopped immediately because so many people were compelled and were like, it's correct. But we don't have a cast. Like, we didn't dig anything up. That conversation should keep going. And I really wish like somebody would put out something just as compelling.
Right.
While, keeping logic in mind.
Right.
So yeah, like if you ever want to talk about San Francisco, dude, it would be a welcome conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely I'm trying to find the opportunity because it's Civic Center. It's heavily guarded. Like they have security guards round the clock, just going round in constant motion. So I'm trying to find a way. I'm waiting for maybe like a big event or something, a big distraction.
You can't just ask.
So it's a state building. So I don't know that they will work with me because I reached out to Houston at Tranquility Park. They said, hell no, you're out of your goddamn mind. And I'm like, okay. I didn't reach out to New Orleans yet. But I did work with Jeffrey, another searcher that met me there. And he has a good relationship with the grounds people that take care of the park.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were there, we did try poking around. But again, I hadn't really refined my theory. So we were off by a little bit. I need to go back again.
Let me ask you this. How are you asking people for permission? Because I don't understand when people are like, oh, I'm having trouble getting permission. I don't understand why. Because that's never really been a problem that I've had. So I guess what I'm asking is, what are you doing? Let's figure out what you're doing wrong.
Okay, so for Houston, I emailed, I believe it was their public works department that handles their facilities. And then they directed me to, I think, like their attorney.
Yeah, but what did you email them? What did you say to them?
I told them that I just wanted to poke around because I'm on a treasure hunt and my research has led me to believe that it may have been buried in this one location.
Okay, so there's your problem.
Okay.
Don't mention treasure hunts. Like I don't think I've ever asked for permission to dig somewhere and told someone why.
Oh.
Right? Like I'm just looking for something, like there's a time capsule, what the fuck ever. But once you start mentioning treasure hunts and you start talking about your ideas and your theories, you sound like a crazy person.
Okay.
It doesn't matter how crazy your ideas are, right? Like to someone who's not informed, you sound like a crazy person.
You just gave me another epiphany. I've people tell me this all the time, that I'm the classic good Boy Scout. I always assume the right way of doing everything, with like being totally honest and forthcoming. And ultimately in life, sometimes you just gotta, what is it? Ask for permission, for forgiveness instead of
No,
permission.
no, I would never say that. I think it's
No.
just how you approach. Like for
Right.
example,
But I mean in the approach. Right,
the
right.
Fairmont, right? Like we were looking to dig at the Fairmont for like 3 years. We were asking permission, and they didn't know our ideas about the treasure hunt until we got there. Almost
Got it.
right.
Oh,
It's a side. Like they don't care. They don't
right.
care about the treasure. They don't care about your ideas. They don't care about
So,
the hunt. They care about you destroying their property, and
right.
that's
So
really what you should focus on.
and luckily for in San Francisco, it's just another flower bed looking, it looks exactly like Cleveland, where it's encased, in cement or whatever, but there's like bushes and that kind of a thing. So right now, again, because it's spring hasn't sprung, it's just dirt. So I can go right now and it's not like I'm gonna destroy anything, right? So that's where I was just telling some people in a different conversation, I'm ready to just go down there. There's homeless all over the place, right? Like if they really want to take issue with me sticking a metal rod in the ground while other people are actually breaking and spray painting, like that would be a pretty sad statement on our reality, but it is what it is. So I'm at that point because it is state government. I imagine it's just going to be this bureaucracy layer after layer after layer, like Houston was, where talk to this person, no, talk to that person. And at the end of the day, I'm not destroying anything, it's just dirt, right? It's just a stick going in the ground. And I have the little camera, the endoscope, or what is that called? The
Endoscopic camera, yeah.
endoscopic camera. I'm gonna do it a la Byron Preiss. I have my construction gear to look like I'm meant to be there, right? Like it's hide in place kind of a thing.
Good luck.
But yeah, I mean, like, what is the worst thing that can happen, right? So I have no arrest record. They want to do that. Okay, great. I'll do community service, like
So
that kind of.
that's the worst that you're not thinking about the worst thing that can happen.
Hmm.
The worst thing that can happen is not you screw yourself up for a little
Right,
while.
right,
The
right.
worst thing that happened is you screw the community up forever.
For everybody, that's the number one concern I hear people all the time, right? Yeah.
I mean, because like everybody thinks they're right, and
Right,
I think you and I can agree. You and I may not agree on your theories,
right.
but one thing that I think we can agree on is there's some crazy shit out there. Like we've
Oh yeah,
probably seen some outrageously crazy theories
yeah,
that we could agree are just batshit insane, right?
absolutely.
And those people are the most confident. You know,
Yeah.
those are the ones that are going to like cities and illegally digging. They're the
Right,
ones that are messing things up for everybody
right.
else. So
I hear you. But yeah, but again, that's the only way I'm gonna do it. And again, I've poked around everywhere with people over the years as well. So I know that it can be done without any, major consequence, whatnot. If again, it's just dirt, right? If
yeah.
it was something more important, obviously I would be more concerned, but yeah, I have to give it a go at some point. Like this one, I wish somebody would poke around there. I know there was one guy that said they were gonna be remodeling the park. So I messaged him, he never got back to me.
I
Um,
know if it helps, I know of like 4 people who live in Houston who love that park and poke around
yeah,
there all the damn time.
well, they need to poke around right where this is at. So this picture isn't show, it's behind this picture, it's not shown
I'm
here.
sure they have.
Um, I know I have posted it with that intention, right? I'm like, oh, I hope they see this and, go out there and try to find it, but I know one of them is the chemistry guy, or what is it? You guys gave
Anagram
my
guy, Alan.
anagram guy. That's his
There's
name.
also Steve. Steve's
Oh,
local. Steve Yoakum. He likes.
oh
To
yes, I
try to
recognize the
do it.
name. All
He's a
right, well,
nice guy. He's mostly on Discord though. If you want to get in touch with him, you got to go to Discord.
I do have a peanut-sized bladder, so I need a bio break again. One
Dude,
sec.
go for it, man.
Sorry.
I'm fine with it. All right. So what are we thinking? Most people on YouTube don't buy the Fairmont theory. Well, I say most. There's like 2. That's fine. Some guy said that they thought Fairmont was a clue to the city, which would be odd. That one hotel that it's not. It's just a hotel, and there's like 14 others across America. like it's a chain. It would be odd, but fair enough. Golden Gate Park wasn't enough for you. Might as well throw in a hotel's logo. Um, uh, so yeah, is thinking Nigeria is correct stupid? Oh, Niagara. I should learn to read. Um, like the Buffalo guy. His ideas about Niagara. Did I miss a Niagara thing? I don't know, man. What's stupid? Like, who decides? It's your puzzle. It's your experience. Do whatever you want, unless that's jumping over Niagara to dig underneath that. Don't do that.
I see
Okay.
your interesting comments.
Yeah, somebody asked if Nigeria is thinking Nigeria is correct. Or Nigeria, I keep saying Nigeria. Niagara is correct is stupid.
So what were the comments about Fairmont again?
Oh, there were people who were so YouTube mainly. There's a couple of people who don't buy the Fairmont thing, and that's fine.
Oh,
One person said that they thought it was a city confirmer, and I kind of thought that was odd. Like Fairmont's a hotel chain. Like there's hotels all over America. I think there's like 11 in America, and we already have Golden Gate Park for God's sakes in the painting. So like, if that's not going to work for you, then a hotel's logo isn't really going to work for you. But
no, I totally get it. That's what I wanted to show you real quick on that subject. So
on the Fairmont.
no, so City Hall has a logo very similar to the Fairmont.
Yeah, but the painting has a logo that's very exact to the Fairmont. It's not similar.
See,
That's just an F.
in a circle. F and SF.
Yeah. But
And
one is closer than the other.
then there's this one as well. So these are all scattered throughout City Hall. So I get the Fairmont, obviously, I visually see how people would connect them. I'm talking about from a historical standpoint, there's no significance that I can find. If somebody can show it to me, make me a believer, I'm all ears.
Right.
But
I mean, I keep going back to the historical significance thing, man. You have to have at least a pattern, at least an observable pattern, and you completely lose that in Cleveland.
Right.
Completely.
So in SF, the historical, the verse, again, we have to stick to the verse, right? The verse has the word justice capitalized. So we have the Superior Court of California at Civic Center. In addition, it talks about education and justice for all to see. So we have one of the best law schools, UC Hastings, across the street from the Civic Center. So I have to map that whole verse out in order to get people to start to buy in. By the way, there's also a Lincoln statue. So that's another hot topic, right? The face in the rocks. Is it Lincoln? Is it Kennedy? Is it Ronald Reagan? Like, who is it, right? So some people are at Land's End because they think that's Lincoln. Well, there's a Lincoln statue right in front of San Francisco City Hall that has a very strange pose, by the way, as in the picture. So let me show you. It's one of the strangest monuments. Like his shoulder is like, I've never seen that, right? Because I saw the one in Chicago now and he's just sitting there like normal. But for SF, his shoulder is popping out and his face happens to be in the painting in the shoulder of the woman. So again, the wonky logic connecting weird shoulders to a Lincoln head.
Okay.
Right, I'm trying to find a better angle. I can't remember where I saved it, but I had created like a mock-up to kind of see how his shoulders are. It's just weird, like almost like he's talking down to you. But anyhow, so that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of clues there. Another one, so in the painting, again, using language, so in art, in an artistic way, you would describe the painting as being gold lined, right? So you've heard of a gold lined box. It's gold for the gold rush, obviously. Where that's our city hall. Our city hall has gold ornaments all around and it's shaped as a rectangle. So I'm not a Golden Gate person. I was when I first started. I got to probe I was one of the first people to get permission to dig with the Parks and Rec folks back in 2018 at the Raoul Amundsen Monument at the Beach Chalet, because that was my giant step, giant pole, giant step, because he had crossed the North Pole and his ship had been docked there at Beach Chalet. But when I started digging, this is how I know for sure it's going to be in a man-made environment, because most people don't know that the city of San Francisco, I want to say like 75, 85% of the city is on beach sand. So it's like anywhere you go digging, like the sand just caves in on you. Like it's so painful to dig in sand, beach sand. So that's how I know it's going to be in some kind of artificial turf, I guess is the best way to put it.
I
Right?
I do want to say just one quick that I caught a comment. It was somebody that deleted their comment very quickly, but I caught it before it got, I think before it gets public, because sometimes people make comments and I get to look at them for a couple of seconds to make sure they're not shitty.
Yeah.
And then they deleted it because I think they were like, oh shit, maybe no one knows about this. And the dude's name was Ronnie Barrow. And just to let him know, feel free to talk about that, because it's something that like the long term, I'm not going to say serious searchers, but the ones that have been doing this a while, we already know that. And we take it into account. It's not a requirement, but it's helpful. So feel free to talk about it. Oh, so he just reposted it. He said, so BP burying cast by convenient hotels. Yeah, that tends to be a, not just convenient hotels, but upscale hotels. It seems to be a pattern with the solved, especially the solved casks or the solved puzzles. They tend to be within walking distance for very upscale hotels that Byron would have stayed at while traveling. I mean, you got to remember there was no like Uber back in the day, and I mean there were taxis, but
yeah, well, we also have historical hotels that at the time were nice, but now they've been run over. Well, as you know, what our city's going through, anyhow. But yeah, I've gone to some of those hotels, correct? And there's one that's right next to the Ninth Circuit Board, Circuit Court. I mean, that I envision him staying at, because it's one of those rundown that once upon a time were epic hotels. Anyhow. Returning to this, I was making the point about Golden Gate that I don't think it's at Golden Gate Park. I think this is just Lombard Street. And again, with the wonky miscommunication between the two, it just so happened to look like Golden Gate Park, but it's not. If you think about Lombard, people describe it as a road snakes, right? So a snake is related from the family of dragon, right? They're all like lizard type creatures. So that's the connection there. But I don't I think it's sad that people keep digging over there, but it is what it is, right? Someone's eventually going to prove somebody right. I'm just saying that for me, these are all high level clues. Like Alcatraz is nowhere near anything. The same thing with the cable car. They crisscross the city, so it could be anywhere. That's why I'm sticking to the dome of San Francisco. And in fact, I think I just saved the photo that would help me illustrate what I'm talking about. Let's see. Oh yeah, so here's I got some good examples to illustrate, right? How Lombard snakes.
Yeah.
So I think that's all he's trying to do, is to represent that. Here's the one that I think helps to visualize why it's City Hall.
You know, the only time I thought I was gonna die in San Francisco was driving down Lombard Street in Brett's M6 BMW.
Oh, that's right. He lives in the East Bay, I think.
He lives in Oakland.
In Oakland, yeah, East Bay. Okay. So I think this is what might have inspired the image. Also, the State of California building across the street. I don't have that here, but I can just show you quickly on Google, I guess. You can see it from the street. So I think the image, and so somebody just posted the Leonardo da Vinci reference that inspired the painting, but I think it was also inspired by the state seal. That's something that's tripped me up from day one. Again, every painting has a reference to the state, the county, the city outline, like Illinois and Cleveland. It's got, you see the map, Florida, the state of Florida is outlined. But from your vantage point, how is California represented?
I wouldn't follow your logic to say that every state's represented in the painting. Like
Oh,
the
I mean, like,
state of New York's not in the New York painting. The state of Wisconsin, or
was
not Wisconsin,
Milwaukee,
Milwaukee. Yeah, Wisconsin. The state of Wisconsin's not
right?
represented in the Milwaukee painting.
So
Um,
I think he did in different ways, right? Visually, literal representations is what you're saying. Correct. I agree with you. Yeah, he literally did not represent them all, but I think figuratively, symbolically, he did. And again,
okay,
this is why I have to map out this theory, right?
all right.
And in fact, I had done a video as well to break it down. That is, you can see it's a Roman goddess. Um, she's sitting in some kind of like valley with the ocean behind her and mountain ranges in the background.
Can I ask you just a question that
Yeah, yeah, of course.
I don't mean for this question to be insulting. I'm genuinely
Oh, oh,
curious.
yeah, yeah.
How far do you have to stretch something before you finally acknowledge that it might not be true? Like when
So,
you say like all states are represented, oh, but they're not visually, just kind of, like how far do you have to take
so
that before you're just
I
like, all right,
call
I'm
it.
wrong?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. The better way to put it is he represent, as I said, the fair folk arrived in the New World. They established a settlement. They built a fort. Part of that is also establishing a form to govern themselves. So what I meant was a form of government. So the state map is state government. City halls, like in Milwaukee, that's a form of government. So what I meant to say is there is a form of government represented. And again, for me living here in California, I recognized it right away that the theme that how do they say, like, imitation is the best form of a compliment, right? So is it easier to invent something from scratch? And to this point, I had prepared. Did you know? I didn't know that Obi-Wan Kenobi was based on samurais in Star Wars.
No.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, here I thought it was an original brand new thought, but it wasn't. George Lucas said that he was inspired by samurais, which is why he named him and made him look like samurai in a way with the robe and all that. And he called him Obi-Wan Kenobi, which sounds kind of Japanese. So I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That's a kind of wonky logic, right? To a normal person, they'd be like, I don't follow what you're saying, but hey, that's what he said. I didn't say that, right? So
Okay.
I'm a that kind of symbolism here.
Okay. So it's not states, it's governments.
Well, so like,
Governments are
oh,
represented.
Fort
Like
Sumter,
I
that
get
right? That's government.
it's the military.
That's government. The military belongs to a government, right?
I guess.
What's another one? So I said New Orleans was Beauregard. I need to bring up that sign to show you. God, it's just so much, and I don't have time to really organize all this
So
stuff.
really, to answer my question from earlier, it's a lot. It has to stretch a lot in order for
So
us
it's
to be
not.
like, maybe I'm wrong.
It sounds stretchy, but it's not. It's like a cipher.
Oh,
How do I? It's
it's
difficult to
not a cipher because ciphers have a very, very direct
specific.
answer.
Correct. Yes.
I mean,
Like,
ciphers may look confusing, but
right.
once you figure them out and explain them, they're like, oh, that's just how it's done.
Right. So again, that's why I'm committed to finding one, right? That's the only way I can explain all this stuff. There's no, because it,
Look, man, to be honest with you, you're not going to be able to explain. If you pulled one out of the ground today,
right,
90% of the people aren't going to buy what you're saying. They're going to
right,
do just like they did with Crew Pat and just be like, dude got
right.
lucky. Because,
Yes.
like, so
So to answer your question, the best way I can answer it is That's the problem. So had he decided, I am gonna show their form of government as a literal physical representation in every painting, it would have made more sense. But I describe it as he flip-flopped. So in one painting, one clue is literal, but in another painting, it's just symbolic and figurative. And so he was wishy-washy is another way to look at it, right? So
Can
he
you
was
solve a painting like that? Like if
uh
is it possible?
yes, if you
A
accept
puzzle,
that
not
he
a painting.
flip-flopped, then you just follow that flip-flop. And you
How do
know,
you follow a flip flop?
because I
I
know
mean, the definition of a flip, you never know when it's coming. You never know where
right,
somebody's going to flip to.
right, right.
How do you
But
follow it?
but the point is you know it's there, so you look
But
out for it.
only you know it's there.
Right. Well, it has to fit in with all the other stuff, right? It's not like a standalone that gives the whole thing away.
Okay.
And trust me, I that's why I came up with this spreadsheet, but this is still overwhelming. I'm trying to find a way that, to your point, can be easily digested by most people, right? So
Mm.
yes, this is mapped out the way my brain is wired, but I absolutely would never expect everybody in general to look at this and be like, oh yeah, we know what this guy's talking about. Like, no, that's just the way my brain catalogs information, but it needs to be presented in a simplified way that most people can accept and be like, okay, I get it, I understand this. So, and then another thing we didn't talk about is the level of complexity, right? So that's another thing where being a teacher plays a part. So you take pre-algebra, then you go to algebra 1, then there's algebra 2, then you usually go to geometry, and then you go to calculus. And I think that's what he did here. So obviously the Cleveland one was like a basic arithmetic, and then San Francisco for me feels more like a calculus level where he just threw in so much
Do you
stuff.
expect someone, in order to solve New York, do you expect someone to solve every other puzzle, all 11?
No, no, because
Then,
you would, as that would be painful to try and understand where he
then,
flipped.
then how would him taking you from pre-algebra to calculus, how does that make any sense?
Oh, that in the level of complexity where he wanted you to work that much harder to solve it. So obviously a pre-algebra equation is pretty simple, right? Versus
Yeah.
theorem. Those are like polar opposite in complexity. So he just ratcheted up the complexity in that mindset,
So you have
right?
to understand at least all of the puzzles in order to solve one.
No, they're not. I know what you're saying. No, it's
Maybe
more,
I'm confused at what you're saying.
yeah,
I,
yeah. That
I
you
don't.
have to go into it knowing you're gonna have to work like 3 times harder to solve any one of the clues to then put them together and string them together to solve the puzzle. I know, again, trust me, I haven't had time to really put this down in a simplified way that people can follow. All I can say is, like, one way to look at it is amount of imagery, right? Like for me, the Montreal one is the one that drives me craziest because there's so little detail. Like, I mean, it's like bare bones.
Uh-huh.
So to me, that's one of the more complicated ones. Like in other words, in order to understand, he put 5 symbols, right? In order to understand one of those 5, to your point, you do have to be reachy and research 2, 3 different things that together explain that one clue before you can move on to the others.
Okay.
I'm just trying to understand what he was thinking.
But maybe he wasn't thinking that at all, and maybe you're just looking
It
at
could
it the
be.
wrong way.
That's possible as well, yeah.
And I don't mean to be like,
No, you're good.
I 100% hope you don't think I'm being disrespectful or
No,
argumentative,
not at
or
all.
I'm
That's
not
why you're
trying.
here.
I'm just, I like, the more complex people get,
Right,
the more I want to just say, hey man, take a step back and
right,
let's assume that
right,
somewhere along this complex sort of convoluted path,
right,
you might have made a mistake or
right.
misinterpreted something, you
Yes,
know. And maybe if we find that, like maybe half, like if you look at your ideas as a linear path,
right,
maybe like you get halfway down the path and you took a misstep. If we can go back and find that misstep,
right,
maybe we can correct it and everything makes sense, instead of being like, well, this puzzle doesn't really fit my ideas, so I've got to stretch until it does. Maybe
Mm.
we go back, we figure out what doesn't fit,
Right,
and we go back and
right,
we think, well, maybe this requirement is incorrect.
right. Right, and that's why I mentioned at the beginning, that's why I just got back from Chicago and I already have a trip to Boston planned and a trip to Cleveland because I need to see it for myself, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why everybody says there's nothing beats boots on the ground. You can
No.
Google research all you want, but until you're physically standing there, your mind is finally able to string it all together for it to make sense to you, and then take that experience and then cookie cutter to the other puzzles as you were just suggesting, right? So, and that's what I've been doing. So I have only recently settled on Civic Center based on all this research. I spent years, like I said, going to Golden Gate Park, going to Aquatic Park, going to Ida Coolberth Hillside Park. I mean, everywhere, you name it, I've been there. And like I said, none of it made sense. I went to Land's End, all of it. I've been Golden Gate. I've been all over the Golden Gate area, Fort Point, Fort Mason, you name it.
I had a question that I asked somebody on Discord a while back, and I never got an answer. And I'm curious if you'll answer it.
Okay.
Or if you can. You might not be able to, and it's fine if you can't. Because as of yet, no one has been able to.
Okay.
So it's a two-part question.
All right.
Do you think this puzzle is brilliant? Byron's puzzle as a whole. Do you think it's a brilliant puzzle?
Oh, I was afraid of this question. Because it is yes and no.
I mean, do you think it's bad?
No.
Do you think it's good?
No. It's a how
I think it's kind of mediocre. This is not a trick question.
no,
I'm
no,
not
no.
trying to trap you into anything.
No, here's the simplest way to put it. We all grew up with the expression to bite off more than you can chew.
Uh-huh.
That's what this is.
You think he tried to be brilliant and failed?
No, that he didn't, and I hate to say this because I prepared myself for using the right words here, but I feel like he needed to dumb it down. I
Yeah.
think he was overly intellectual. And I rehearsed this. So one thing that drives me crazy about the people that win on Jeopardy, those people somehow thought it was interesting to study Marie Antoinette's cousin who married the first Archduke of some nation in order to build powers to overthrow the British government. I don't give a crap about any of that, but I think Byron did. I think he found all that kind of stuff fascinating and threw that into these puzzles, because when I look at these, they're all overkill to me.
Let me rephrase.
Yes. Okay.
Do you think this puzzle is in depth? It's an in-depth puzzle. You have to know a lot about history or a lot about whatever.
Yes.
You think that?
That definitely, yes.
Okay.
All right. Like
over time, especially the last 5 years,
right,
we've had John Palancar explain every clue that's in the Chicago, Boston, and Cleveland paintings. Right. Every single one that he put in.
Yeah.
Which one of those clues do you think is in depth?
Well, see, we go back to your point about them not communicating clearly all of the time, right? So as far as JJP knows, they were just Polaroid shots.
But wait.
Yeah.
You have used examples of the images being in depth, showing, state, city governments, showing maps.
Right. Yeah.
Which of the things that John said I put in these paintings is in depth? Because to me, every time John said something about one of these paintings, it was like brain dead. It was so simple.
Right.
I haven't heard anything that requires any level of thought above like middle school logic. So which one of the ones that John said this is in the painting, right, is in depth? Generally, when I ask people if they think the puzzle's brilliant, I asked which of those do you think is brilliant?
Right.
Because you got Boston Pops, you got a porthole that's not even on a ship.
Right.
You got a bunch of references to baseball. Like none of them are in depth. You've got every visual match in Cleveland is just right there. The Chicago stuff, it's like, right. Which one's in depth?
Cleveland was I consider it like the basic arithmetic puzzle, right? Like it was, as you've described over the years, a 1-for-1 match. Like he made it as simple as possible. The rest are not that simple.
Oh god, there's people in
Wait,
the comments who are like, JJP has not explained everything in the paintings. Period. There's podcasts that say, "Oh, I can't tell you that," or "Oh, I forgot." There's a podcast where he says that he can't tell you what's on top of the Boston painting, which he later was just like, it's a baseball and a bat. And there's paintings where he doesn't say what the numbers represent, and then Brian and Andy are like, "Oh, that's the latitude and longitude coordinates." He doesn't correct it. He doesn't like it doesn't phase it. So yeah, okay. So maybe you have two things, but and I'm talking specifically to Mojo, not to you. It was Mojo made the comment. You have two things in two paintings, and neither one of them, like nothing else, is in any way, shape, or form complex. So you can't. If we're using your example of pre-algebra to calculus, right? You can't have an entire puzzle of pre-algebra and then two things that you don't understand and be like, that must be calculus.
right.
It's just not, it's not logical.
No, but if you look at them, they're very similar. Like New York is very similar to Montreal in its simplicity. Both of them are not dripping in detail.
Right.
The way San Francisco to me is the most over the top. It's
dude, I would agree. San Francisco, the most beautiful painting by far.
He like threw everything but the sink into it. It's like, oh my God. Like why? Like that just hurts my brain.
And same with Montreal. Montreal you could throw in with New York and Montreal, Milwaukee, and New York you could throw together.
Too, right.
They just they don't really have anything.
They're the basics, right? Yeah. So to me, those are more complicated because you have less to work with, literally, right? But yeah, so
maybe I don't know that I would go so far as to call New York basic, but
well, the symbolism is there as I put, and by the way, I've posted various versions of this document on Facebook for anyone interested. But again, using the symbolism, New York, we hear about rhapsodic man's soil. George Gershwin was a Russian Jew. He wrote Rhapsody in Blue. The lady is floating up to the heavens like the rapture, a religious theme. The windows look like stained glass windows from a church. So it's obviously a religious theme for New York. I get it, but most people don't. So if I had to hazard a guess of where the cask is buried, it's going to be near some kind of religious building. Yeah. Not at it, obviously, but near it. That seems to be the theme of that puzzle. So for me, San Francisco, the theme is Civic Center. Like that's her head is the shape of a dome. Like our dome, by the way, I didn't even know until I, again, learned a lot. Our City Hall Civic Center dome is like world renowned. It's like world famous. I had no idea. Like you walk in there and you feel like you're, in Eastern Europe or some old medieval town. Like it's spectacular.
There's two comments that I should respond to, I guess, because they were directed at me. What paintings have you not seen? I've not seen Charleston, and I've not seen Chicago. And then Mojo said he respectfully disagreed about the simplicity, and one day he hopes to get JJP to admit that. And I do too. I think something people don't realize about me, especially when working on the puzzle, is I do take this simplistic approach, but not when I'm researching things, because I want that to be proven wrong. So I'm constantly like looking and pushing for more in-depth stuff, and I just never find it. So when I do interviews with John, like there's a lot of stuff that gets cut on them, but they're mainly like, and it's stuff John wants cut, not stuff I want cut. You should make that important. But there's a lot of me like trying to dig down and trying to get deeper into stuff, and there's no depth. There's nowhere to go. And this is me talking to Mojo, and I'm sorry, but it's just like no matter how far I try, it doesn't go past the surface on a lot of it. And in some ways that's like disappointing.
Right. But remember, George, again, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding was that he wanted these high school to college level kids to go talk to their teacher, to work with their parents,
We don't know what he wanted. We assume.
We don't know.
We assume.
Wait, what?
We assume.
Oh, we assume that. Oh, sorry. Well, that's why I'm asking, right? Thank you. I thought said that to someone. Maybe.
So the only times I've ever, because the only person we could ask is John, right? Like what Byron's intentions were. And I asked John 2 questions during one interview. One of the questions I think made it, and one question he cut out. And the one question that made it, I think, was what was the target audience?
Right.
And he said that Byron never really specified, right?
Right.
But he assumed it was because he had the National Lampoon guys. We assume it's the same target audience as in the National Lampoon, right?
Got it.
And the other one was what was Byron's intention.
Right.
And he didn't really have a great example, like a great explanation for that either. Like he said that Byron wanted a handicapped kid in a library to be able to solve these, and we know that's not possible.
No.
You know? So like, I don't even know if Byron knew what his intentions were, but we place upon Byron these grand intentions.
Right.
We have no idea if that's what he wanted. We don't know if he wanted people to go out and explore parks. We don't know if he wanted people to learn local history. We don't know if he just wanted to sell books. You know, we just don't know. We got some evidence. We got evidence that he was the kind of person that would want us to go out and explore parks, but we don't know if that was the point of this book.
So then it could be to my earlier statement where, again, basing fiction on truth makes your work easier, right? It's easier for him to have created this mythology of the fair folk based on real, historical figures, without necessarily being a shout out to those historical figures, right? I'm assuming that he was trying to give a shout out to Paul Revere, to all Beauregard and New Orleans, whomever, right? But you're right. We don't know that that's what he meant. It could have just been, for lack of a better word, lazy. Right? Like, I don't need to invent some character. There's Ulysses S. Grant with enough of a character all on his own. So let's make him the troll in Chicago, right?
People yelling at me. They're agreeing with you and yelling at me. They're saying that I need to take art classes. That art's in depth in a nice way. That the art's complex and there's deep. But that's not the question that I asked.
Good George.
Right? Like just for the people in the comments, that's not the question that I asked. What you see in the art is not what I asked.
Got it.
What John has told you is in the art.
Right.
What is in depth? And like we see things like everything that John said about the Boston puzzle, the Boston painting, confuses the hell out of everybody. It spells Boston here, and there's the Boston Pops, and there's a porthole that's not on the ship. You know, like
symbolism.
Yeah. So like I get art is up to interpretation, right? Yes. But at the end of the day, what is in the art is what the artist tells you is there. Right. You know, like your interpretation with art matters and arguably matters more than the artist's interpretation. But the symbolism that the artist is trying to get out to you is what matters, not in this situation, not what you take from it.
Right.
So, and the question that I asked is, what has John said is in this art is in depth or smart or brilliant or it's all very, and I'm not saying it's bad and I'm not saying it's dumb. I'm just saying it's very simplistic. It's very in your face.
Right.
Anyway, Rebecca also says that you have an awesome YouTube channel and that we should put the link out, and we should do that because you post videos, right?
Yes, yeah, but so clearly people. So I've been doing it again from a Byron Preiss point of view, where he was a teacher. So I'm doing them as like seminars, right? Which are not very popular. It seems like I need to start doing more of this, where I'm actually just describing the puzzle, as opposed to doing my PowerPoint. They're PowerPoint presentations, and I just record them, basically, right? I mean, so I'm acting like a professor.
Why don't you just jump on a live stream? They're open to everybody. You could jump on a live stream, take questions, and I mean, so, I wouldn't like community members should do that.
So at the beginning, when we were prepping to go live, I mentioned that I do use Microsoft Teams, and that's what I plan to do. And I wanted to broadcast that I'm open to doing what I call strategic Saturdays, right? Where we hone in on one single city and we all do live research and we all do live brainstorming, and to make it fast.
That's going to be bad for you.
Right? No, because they raise your hands. That's the beauty of Teams, right? You raise your hand and you get the order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then let each person speak in order so that we all have a voice and we all say our opinions and we can accomplish things. Because I'll tell you, the hardest part of this whole thing is just recreating the past, trying to find pictures and information on what things were like back then is the hardest part. Like I said, going to all these archives is just a lot of work. But every time I go, I find something good.
Yeah.
But I do think that that's where we need to go because again, not everybody's brain is wired to sit there through a half-hour PowerPoint presentation and and then digest all that info and then tie it all together at the end and it all makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So for the record, I was the kid growing up that I loved rainy days because we got to stay in and watch TV and usually it was like documentaries and stuff like that. So I can sit for hours and hours watching documentaries, but I realize not everybody is into that, right?
I don't know. I'm a pretty big fan of those.
Oh, are you? Okay, nice. Because honestly, that's how I see these paintings. They're just documentaries about historical events in the US that we should be proud of and that we should celebrate. And yes, the art has symbolism to that end.
Yeah. I would just welcome more conversation, man. I feel like something that this community needs is more conversation and a different voice. I think like my voice is maybe a little too loud sometimes. Um I think the opposing side of the table needs a louder voice, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
At least a kind voice. There's a lot of loud voices, but they're not necessarily kind.
No, but that's why I said at the beginning, right? Why I wanted to come on here is because I do welcome the devil's advocate, right? That is how you defend your methodology and your logic and your reasoning, right? If it doesn't make sense to anybody else, then what is it worth, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
together we can get to that.
yeah, and I feel like at least in this situation, there's so much information and we kind of jumped around. I think you're right in that drilling down might help, like on one specific city instead of just jumping.
Yes.
But of
Yes.
course, we were talking about methodology, and it's hard to do
Right.
that without talking about all of these different cities.
So another one real quick, you just prompted a thought. So
Yeah,
on the Charleston one, how I said about government being represented, in the verse, it talks about a White House. And so there are the main primary theory, I believe, is that there was a socialite that actually her house was considered the White House. Like she was like the most famous person in town for some time. But if you actually look at the city logo, for Charleston, it looks like this White House logo, like the
yeah,
literal White House in Washington, D.C. logo. They're both blue with white Greek column facade. So is he shouting out because it's very specific to say White House, right? I think we're all been conditioned to assume Washington, D.C. So why use those type of words?
but how does that help you?
Because it gets me closer to where I think it is, which is closer to the old slave auction block.
The city
Yeah, it's like down
logo?
the street, a couple blocks away from the old slave block quarter where they
Yeah.
would auction off. And then that's a block away as well from that pirate cellar where they would lock up the pirates as punishment.
Okay.
And there's a Louis Stevenson reference, Treasure Island reference in the poem as well.
Okay. All right.
So again, the same logic across the board with all the puzzles. But again, to your point, there's so much detail, it gets overwhelming where I don't know how to capture it in an easily digestible way, which is why I'm here, right? And which is why I do want to start these strategic Saturdays where we just hone in on a specific clue for a specific city and then just beat it like a dead horse, right?
There's a man named Mark Sobere who would like to
Yes.
tell us that he is having a threesome with both of our moms right now. And I would just like to respond to that if he is currently having sex with my mom, he has got really, really terrible taste in women.
Same here.
Like, you feel free, dude.
Oh my God,
That
that's
says
hilarious.
way more about you than it does about us.
See, I'm going to take it as symbolism. I'm going to assume he means genetics, that he likes the brains we were given.
I'm gonna assume he wants to have sex with my mom, and that's gross. Uh,
You're taking it literal.
yeah, go for it, dude. More
See,
power to
great
you.
symbolism, Mark.
Yeah, I'm more of the simple thought. I think simply. Uh, Brandon Hurd says there's some serious critical thinking issues going on here with cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias. Have you ever watched? Did you follow the Forrest Fenn thing?
Yes, yes,
Did
it's
you
frustrating.
watch? Did you watch? What's his face? Jack Stoof's cognitive bias video.
No, no.
I should post that on the group again. That's probably like the most important treasure hunting video I think anyone should ever watch.
Right.
It's the only video he ever put out, really, and it's about cognitive biases.
Got it. So I do want to be clear about that because I did prepare to answer that. Quite the opposite for me. I've just made it clear that I've thrown away all of my old ideas. And now I just, what I do, how I formulate my theories now is I stalk the Facebook groups. I see someone plant an amazing seed where I'm like, wow, this thing has potential. And I showed you my folders, right? So you can see here, I just drop them in here. Like this. Somebody posts something. These are all things people posted. And then after a couple months, I'm like, holy shit, this piece and this piece and this piece kind of makes sense. And then I do a deep dive and I'm like, whoa, this person I think is onto something like that. So all of it, everything I've discussed, I have not. My own theory, like I said, was at the beginning at Beach Chalet. I dug there in 2018. I felt embarrassed and all that jazz, like so many other before and after me. And I've given up on that. So everything I've been talking about, I've not come up with any of it. It's just other people posting it and me stringing them together to make some cohesive, coherent theory, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm like, wow, that kind of makes sense. So yeah, so to Brandon's point, no, I guess it's other people's bias that I'm confirming, right? Where it's their idea and I think it's great, so I'm going to follow up on it.
Well, we've been going for 2 hours and 17 minutes,
Yes,
which is nice because like I've had fun. I hope you've had fun.
Absolutely. Yes.
I always leave these going like the person's either gonna have fun or they're gonna think I'm a dick. And
No.
so you've had fun, so that's good.
Oh, like I said earlier, the way my brain is wired, I can talk about this for 6 hours nonstop.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm the exact same way.
Oh, okay.
Oh god, but
Yeah, right.
it gets annoying sometimes, but you know I could do it as long as I can. I think the thing the weird the like the warm middle you have to find is someone you can argue with without them feeling insulted, without you feeling insulted, without either of you getting angry.
Right. And that's
Right?
this.
I hope that's this.
It absolutely was because we're passionate about something that we want to solve, right?
Yeah.
It's not about ego. It's not about who's better than whom. No, it's that we have a common goal and we want to get there and we want to push each other to get there.
Yeah.
So I appreciate all of this time together. And I wanted to share real quick that growing up, my siblings and cousins all remember how I was the kid that would not let them leave the table until we finished that Monopoly game.
Oh god. Monopoly
Yes.
takes like 12 hours.
Yes, I tortured them and I feel so bad because at the time I didn't know that my brain was wired differently, right?
Yeah.
Like they wanted to play for an hour and then go run around in the yard, right? But I was like, no, you're not leaving this table until I'm satisfied that we finished this game.
Yeah, my son's the same way. My son's it's like I guess he's autistic. He has problems with social situations,
Oh,
but
yeah,
he's
we-
like that too. He latches on to things and then you
Yes.
cannot let go. And you're just
That's-
like 20 minutes later you're like, "Dude, you still talking about this?" Like
yeah,
we've changed
absolutely.
subjects like 4 times now.
Yes. Yep,
So,
that's me.
but anyway, it's still fun.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So
Is there anything you want to hit on before we leave? Because I'm gonna have to go, or Rachel's gonna yell at me.
no, just that I feel confident enough to say that we'll find one this year.
People say that every year.
Yes, so I want this to be the year. Yes.
All right, cool. Good luck.
And until then, hopefully that'll be the reason to reconnect again, right?
Yeah, if you find one, dude, definitely come back on.
Right.
But you can come back on anytime. Like if you have an idea
Anytime.
you want to talk about it, just let me know.
Yeah. Yeah. Next time I find a smoking gun, I'll come back.
All right. Well, I'm gonna end the stream. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
And I believe you are done.